here and here. All right. Hello, J56 on Instagram. Hello from Cali. Hello from here, F Pollock 86. Nice to see you as well. Just getting this live started. You can let me know on both TikTok, please, in the comments, and on IG and on YouTube. If you can hear me clearly, please let me know in the comments. And good evening to everybody. I did a pretty poor job on this video today, so I need your help on the talking points because I'm going to redo this video. We're going to be talking about the concentration of wealth by certain individuals, as you can see on the screen on TT and on YT, the concentration of media and data. Bernie has been warning us for a long time about this, so hopefully more people will join and we can talk about this. And I hope to be able to do a better job on the video and take some guests as well to talk about this issue. So those of you that are joining from on IG will share. Thank you very much. And it's good here, Lockhart 33. It's good here as well. This is going to be a pretty short live. If I ever have a short live, I don't know if I ever actually do, but I don't think it'll be too long. And thanks to everyone on IG that's been sharing the videos and reposting, and the audience is growing so fast on Instagram. And if you're new to this channel, to this account, whatever you want to call it, TK Civics, I'm an advocate for civics. And more importantly, I'm an advocate for bringing representation back to the people. It's not a crazy idea. It's the entire premise of the United States of America is representation for the people, by the people. And we all know that we're nowhere near that today. We're farther away from it now than we certainly were 40 years ago. We were always moving in a direction where our representatives, for the most part, we've always had a ruling class. We've always had too much corruption in politics and so forth. But the level of distrust in government, that the level of, the lack of the rule of law, the lack of so much that's happening in our society and mostly in our government. I'm going to do a video on why we're all so angry. Abu Musa, go away with this nonsense. If don't start with that already, I'm going to block you. Goodbye. We don't do that here. And so anyway, so if we get some crazy commenters, I have to take a minute to make sure I block those people. You didn't see them on IG, but you do see them on TT. Use the abbreviations for the different social media platforms just to make sure, depending on where I'm broadcasting, you never know how the algorithms are going to treat these different things. You got to be careful what you say, freedom of speech, but it's not freedom to broadcast speech, which I actually agree with. You can have freedom of speech, but you don't have freedom to broadcast that speech. However, the problem with all the platforms is they don't tell you what you can say and what you can't say. It's so absurd that they don't tell you. J56, you guys can't see the screens that everybody can see on TT. But here it's funny that you mentioned JD Vance is a puppet for the billionaire class. Absolutely. He's Peter Thiel's little boy. Without Peter Thiel, JD Vance would be absolutely nothing. JD Vance owes his entire political career and any career to Peter Thiel. which is one of the people that's on the list. So interesting that you said that, J56, because he is on the graphic that I have on the screen on the other platform. So if anyone wants to join on TT on TikTok and talk about these billionaires, Bernie has been warning about this for a long time, right? And people are not paying attention enough. I think people don't realize how much control these 6 or 7 individuals have. These 6 or 7 individuals, many of them used to be part of the PayPal mafia. For those of you that know who the PayPal mafia is, they were the core group in PayPal: Peter Thiel, Elon Musk, David Sachs. Mark Zuckerberg wasn't part of PayPal, but Mark Zuckerberg is part of basically Peter Thiel's. Peter Thiel is his mentor. But anyway, the old PayPal mafia, people don't understand how nefarious and how sinister these people are, or were and still are, with PayPal. PayPal's entire mission wasn't just to be peer-to-peer money transfer. It was to replace the dollar, ideally with a global currency like a PayPal currency. Now that failed dramatically, but these people at the time called themselves libertarians. And libertarianism is garbage. It's a fantasy world. Well, it's not garbage. It's a fantasy world. Libertarianism is not a political philosophy, a practical, political, functional type of government. Libertarianism is a fantasy, thinking that you want less government, so little government, and that people will do the right thing. That doesn't work in capitalism. In capitalism, when you have no regulation or limited regulation like you have today, capitalism is total exploitation, like it was back in the Industrial Revolution, prior to the Industrial Revolution, when the Rockefellers and Carnegies and Vanderbilts were making people work 7 days a week, not paying them fairly, and they had no protections for the workers. So when it comes to pure capitalism, if you don't have government involvement and government regulation, capitalism will exploit you and all of us to no end, to literally to our demise. That's what capitalism does. And I'm a capitalist. I'm not knocking capitalism. What I'm knocking is unbridled or unrestricted capitalism. That's the whole point of government. And what you can and can't change is all the time. That's right. I'm reading a couple of comments from IG. JD Vance is from there. Yep. Okay. So anyway, so I will exploit what people allow you to mean. Spencer Moore. Anyway, so let's go into these 7 individuals. It's really 6, and I put Sam Altman in there as the 7th person. But these PayPal mafia people, it's not all of them anymore. They're still there. Peter Thiel is still there. Elon Musk is still there. But now they're called the Dark MAGA Mafia. So Joe Blunt says, why are you obsessed with billionaires? I'm obsessed with billionaires. Now, what I'm obsessed with, Joe Blunt, is why are you obsessed with protecting billionaires? There should be, you should be able to make as much money as you can through capitalism, but you should not be able to exploit the system and not pay your fair share of taxes. So obsession with billionaires not playing in a fair system. They are exploiting the rules constantly with loopholes and so forth. We all know it. So Joe Blunt, unless you are a billionaire, the obsession why some Americans want to protect billionaires is hard to fathom. Why people would want to protect people who don't play by the rules, who don't pay their fair share of taxes, who hide their wealth through many, many different types of loopholes. And they only care. When is the last time you've listened to Mark Zuckerberg and say how great the world's going to be when he created Facebook? Or now Elon Musk is talking about that, oh, you're not going to have to work in 20 or 40 years because of AI. But you know what he's not saying? He's not saying that you're actually going to get universal income or anything like that. He's just saying you don't have to work. And when's the last time you believed anything Elon Musk says? Where is full self-driving? Where is any of the things? Where's the boring company that's actually working? Like almost everything out of his mouth is just like Trump. It's a lie. They throw out these things like you're not going to have to work. Life is going to be so great. You know, when a billionaire says something like that, a lot of people believe them. but you shouldn't, because they are always lying, because they don't care about society. What they're thinking about is something so different than what we think about. We care about our families and being able to have affordability and go buy groceries. They don't care about any of that because that's not a concern for them. They only care about how much wealth they can accumulate, how much power and control they have, and how much they can control their narrative so that they always remain in power, and how much can they surveil us. These are the types of things that billionaires think about. And they also believe, because they have so many yes people around them, they think that they can fix everything. And they always spout out these lies. But at the end of the day, and I'm not talking about all billionaires. Let me be very clear there. There's a certain group of Silicon Valley billionaires that are exploiting us. And if you want to go through the list, here's the list. So they are known as the dark MAGA mafia because they kiss up to Trump in order to get whatever they want. And if you have wanted any proof of that, it's who was standing, who was in the first row during the inauguration. It wasn't our congressional leaders, meaning the representation for the people, by the people. It was just the billionaires. They were in the first row. And that shows that the connection between government and a certain group of billionaires, they're in control. Nobody else is in control. All right. So moving to Elon Musk, he has a net worth, and so concentration of media data. So all you need to know is what Bernie's been talking about for years, is how much concentration of media and data is just in the hands of 6 people, basically, 7 people. First one is Elon Musk. He owns Twitter. Still refuse to call it Twitter. Call it X. It's Twitter. Twitter, Starlink. So Twitter has almost 600 million monthly users. That's also bogus. It's not that many. Most of them are bots. But it does have a lot of monthly users each month. So he controls the misinformation and the propaganda that's out there. And we all know that a lot of these things are Russian bots and so forth. So they are Russian bots, many of the Twitter accounts, but nonetheless, they control the propaganda and the misinformation. Or Elon, the whole reason he bought Twitter is, you see it on the chart, is to control the narrative, as much of the narrative as he wants. That's right. Locker33 says they all know that all they have to do is give Trump a gift and tell him he's great. That's literally all you have to do with Trump, is just tell him how great he is, and you'll get what you want. That's all Trump values. So you got Elon Musk, Twitter, Starlink. Starlink controls data, the internet, right? So he has data. And then he also controls Tesla and SpaceX. So he has the ability to control Tesla. So he knows the amount of data that Tesla, if you happen to drive a Tesla car, the amount of data you're serving to Tesla, where you go, how you get there, even your biological functions like heart rate and so forth can be determined by Tesla. The camera information, they are basically selling all that data and your personal information because you own a Tesla. And don't think he couldn't off you. Someday, one of these electric cars that are software manipulated is going to off somebody, because they can literally control that if they want to. So when you have a Tesla, you're giving Elon Musk an incredible amount of control. And it's not just Tesla. It's any car that's collecting that much information is basically like a computer on wheels. I will never own one. I will own old cars, mechanical cars, not cars with excessive software that are tracking me. And I don't do anything wrong, but I'm not going to give up that kind of information to people. So this is absurd, the amount of information that Elon is grabbing out of Tesla. And then you have Oracle and the Ellisons. They control the data and the algorithm on TikTok. They also own CBS, and they are trying to buy CNN soon. The Oracle and the Ellisons are worth almost $400 billion, and they control the data for 170 million TikTok users. An absurd amount of information. Think of the things that you do in TikTok, just like I'm doing right now, and the data that they're collecting. It's incredible what they can do with that data. if they want to do something nefarious. Then you have Jeff Bezos also on the list, of course. And with Bezos, or Bezos, however you want to pronounce it. Oh, Mr. Global is here. I didn't see that. Apologies, Mr. Global. Welcome, welcome.
How you doing?
Good. Thanks for joining. I just want to make sure my screen is bigger today so that I can. Nope, that's not the one I wanted. That's not the one I wanted. Let's see. Still learning the systems here. How are you doing
Something
this evening?
about Oracle that's interesting is where I'm from, one of their headquarters is here.
That's right. Yeah. And how
Yeah.
and
And they
okay.
bought out Cerner, which is a medical records company. So
Oh,
uh
interesting. So now they have access to medical records if they wanted to.
that's what I know to understand. Yeah, I used to date somebody that worked for Cerner, and that kind of fell off. But anyways, yeah, they that building then turned into Oracle, and then I was now all of this information that you're telling me is kind of interesting to kind of correlate all that together.
Yeah, so I didn't even see that in my research that so Oracle owns what's the name that company? What's the name of the company?
It was Cerner,
Cerna. Okay, interesting. So you see
which
it's all about data collection, right? And Oracle of course provides the data systems and the infrastructure for so many of the Fortune 500 companies as well.
Mhm.
Right. So the enormous amount of data and surveillance, basically, like, that, of course, that can be used for surveillance. Right.
You could, yes, if that's, yep.
All right. So that was interesting. And by the way, something I wanted to mention to you the other day is, we spoke about it, about the gaslighting from our good friend the other night, right? And keeping things
Hmm.
on track. So I have a new format that I'm going to start probably tomorrow. And we'll try and do a better job. And you did, like I said, you did a great job the other day keeping us on track. But something I wanted to mention the other day, as an example, was that remember when our friends mentioned about when has American values ever been enacted in another country where we promoted American values successfully in terms of like self-rule, freedom, liberty. And remember when I mentioned Germany, Japan, Ukraine now, and others, and how we immediately pivoted and squirmed out of that and started talking about something else.
Yeah.
That was my failure. Like, like those pivots and watching people gaslight, like where they ask me a question and I answer it, but they didn't want to talk about it anymore and they just move on. And then he did the same thing when we talked about Xi, right? The President Xi did the same thing when I mentioned that he is a cult of personality, very much like our own president. And he said, absolutely not. And he pivoted to saying how the economics in China are much more localized. Like that was some sort of defense. But that was a squirming out of it because it had nothing to do with politics and it had everything to do with economics, right? And,
He's
and
he's slippery.
he is
He's very
slippery,
slippery.
right? And if you catch that thing because I go with the flow sometimes, but we can't let people pivot, right? We got to hold them accountable to the topic at hand, and not let them slide out of things when they get into debates, right?
I think you're right, but I also think certain people, that's just what they're gonna do. I don't think I mean, certain people you can bring back to an equilibrium, but I think he's not. I don't think he can come back to an equilibrium. He's so far invested into his own perception of what he thinks is right that it's only going to take being burnt by his ideas. But anyways, you get it.
Yeah. Yeah, but after the lives when that happens, to the audience that's here that's watching, these shows are relatively new. I sometimes will debate people about various things, and some people are slippery and like to gaslight and like to pivot constantly when they're cornered, right? When they're cornered and you're trying to stay on topic, and that's something that I want to try and do a better job in the future because I think sometimes
Well,
I'm just too nice.
not even that. I mean, I said he was being cynical. I mean, I think you're trying to do something genuinely from your heart. And a lot of times it feels very backhanded, some of his comments towards you, and it angers me because it's very cynical. And I don't appreciate it.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, I kind of just go with it because I actually like Rick, right? So, but you're right. Yeah, he will just because he wants to be so pessimistic and cynical about things, he actually knows that everything that I talk about, if it were to happen, it would fix everything, but he doesn't want to admit it. So all he wants to be is cynical, saying it can't happen, which I understand. You know, yeah, people will say it can't happen, right?
Yeah.
Lockhart33 on Instagram says ICE got access to the IRS system and we're using that to raid people. Yeah, I mean, access to their cell phones, access to Uber data. I mean, the amount of this is where it goes on to the billionaires. Now let's connect the dots for everybody here because this will be interesting. Now this is a little speculation. I don't have proof on it, but it's really not a far leap. Peter Thiel and Palantir have government contracts with over 70 different US government agencies. Think about all those agencies that have information. And they also have, of course, with Oracle, has access to a tremendous amount of the digital infrastructure in our country. So if they want to be able to hack into where you're going on an Uber ride and then be able to raid you and think that you might be an illegal immigrant, they're not getting a warrant to do any of that information. They are just using the surveillance data that they have access through these individuals or in these companies. So it's not a far leap to think that ICE can get access to this data either from people and companies like Peter Thiel and Palantir or from companies like Ellison and Oracle, because Uber is most likely using infrastructure from Oracle or from even Amazon or so forth. And of course, Jeff Bezos is on this list as well, even though I don't think he's quite as nefarious as the rest, but it's hard to know. He's a little bit more cunning than some of the others. And a little bit, I always say, people always tell you and show you who they are. Jeff Bezos is a little bit more clever. Sometimes he stays under the radar a little bit more. All right, I'm just going through a few comments. All right, so now I want to go past the Ellisons and Oracle and talk about Bezos. Let's talk about Bezos, or is it Bezos? Whatever. Is that the French way of saying it? Bezos.
Bezos.
Bezos, Amazon. So he knows how often you're on Amazon. He knows what you buy. He knows how often you buy it. The amount of data you can imagine that Amazon collects on all of us. And then, of course, he also owns the Washington Post, which is one of the most important political publications in the country. Then he also owns Whole Foods, which if you shop at Whole Foods, he knows what you're buying at Whole Foods and what you're eating. How can that information be utilized? Probably in many ways. I can't think of everything offhand. And then he also owns Twitch as well. And Twitch is used by over 250 million people, but more importantly, 54 million Americans, 54 million young Americans who are streaming on Twitch and using Twitch and communicating on Twitch. So the amount of data that they have on Gen Z in particular from Twitch. So again, this is all about wealth, power, control, surveillance, and all those different aspects. When
Yep.
you go ahead.
Oh no, sorry. No, it's totally right. I did so much research on loose leaf. It's just all big tech companies with the intelligence community and big corporate all combined, and that fact that big tech CEOs are literally in, sitting alongside with. They're all hanging out and spending time with each other.
Will, we just
There's
lost you.
more.
I think you might be covering your microphone. No, you were loud and clear for a moment there, and then it got all muffled. Nope, still not. How strange. See, maybe they're muting Will. While you get your microphone fixed, we also have someone else on the line. Theory, welcome, Theory.
Hello.
So thanks for joining. I think this is your first time probably on this live. I don't remember your username, and I'm pretty good with that. And Mr. Global is as well.
Yes, it's definitely my first time on your live. It's refreshing to hear someone talking on a live and doing more than hunting for MAGA or liberals. So it's very refreshing to see that there are other people that see what I see. I'm one of those retired Air Force members who got stuck in all of these rabbit holes of information and just left out in the wind because everyone thinks I'm crazy.
What generation are you, and where do you sit on the political spectrum?
I am Generation X. I've hated our political system for over 20 years now. I listen to grandparents and aunts and uncles, say the same thing. When so-and-so gets in office, everything's going to be different. Got in office, everything was always the same. I was like, something's not right. And then September 11th was really hard for me to swallow because of all of the back information I had from working at Offutt Air Force Base in Nebraska. I was there when the president came, and I was responsible for his whole entourage. So it was. This is the app that you can't say anything on, so I'm always trying to tread lightly. But wink, wink. I wrote a book that talks about wink. Okay, not trying to sell anything on your page here. So wink, wink. I wrote a book where I connected all these dots of this really loud conspiracy theory that would not let go. And it was the Dark Enlightenment. And when I went down the Dark Enlightenment conspiracy theory, I, just started connecting some dots with legislation, finance, the whole nine. And what I found is the most disturbing thing that I don't think a lot of people are paying attention to. So, with that being said, you are absolutely right about connecting all the dots to people that are the data that they've collected, and what they're being allowed to do is insane right in front of our faces, and we're just doing it willy-nilly, so to speak.
Yeah, and that brings up a great point. Is I'm going to actually pop on the screen because I want to see how far down the rabbit hole, because I'm always working to figure out all the different forces, if you want to call them, that are impacting our government. And let's see, I'm going to bring up the 4 circles. This one right here. Now, these are the 4 core circles, and there's some backing behind them. Will, are you back?
Yeah, I'll just have a jump.
Why don't you drop out, Will, and come back in? We'll invite you back in because it's something going on with your microphone. There you go. Okay. So for those that are new to this is really important. Now, these are not all the forces. There's corporate special interests. There's foreign governments that are not listed here. But within the administration today's administration, now in past administrations, there's always influences in government, right? But people need to understand these 4 particular. There's actually a 5th that I haven't introduced in a video yet. That's more about the economic system regarding the tariffs. So that's going to come out soon. And so it's going to be a 5th circle, and that will complete sort of the major forces within our government. The first one is the one we're talking about today in the billionaires and the corporate dictatorship of the dark MAGA mafia, who follow the Dark Enlightenment philosophy by Curtis Yarvin. So they want a corporate dictatorship. In their ideal world, that these Silicon Valley billionaires, they would take over our government and turn it into a corporate dictatorship. So if everyone can see that on the screen, I know it's small. I'll try and make it a little bit larger. So then you have the corporate dictators. So they want to turn us into a corporate dictatorship. Then there's a second group that's on the right in the blue bubble, and they are the pro-Ziists, right? So I'm abbreviating there, of course. Yeah. And they just want the survival of the J state, which I actually understand. A lot of people have a huge problem with this. The problem with this is we created the J state with the help of UK. It's our responsibility to protect Israel, and people don't like that perspective. But it is true, and we are the greatest power on earth who created this, and we keep our promises. And it is important for Israel to continue to exist, and it's important for America to protect them. However, with that said, They have gotten way too embedded in our political system and in bribing and buying and influencing our government officials. This is no longer like a separation where the United States promised to defend, like we do all of our allies, but the amount of manipulation that's happening and exploitation by is into our government and our government officials is out of control. So it's more nothing against the people and it's everything against the government. The government is causing the problem. And then, so that's the blue bubble there. And then you have the WC nationalists. I just call them the white supremes, and Project 2025. Now, behind them are several groups, but the most known group is the Heritage Foundation. And there's also the Federalist Society, which is also very closely related, more involved in the judiciary. And the Heritage Foundation is more involved with legislation and to turn us into a theocratic dictatorship, which just basically means just a religious state. And these are the people like Stephen Miller, Russ Vogt, and many others. Now, this organization is becoming more and more extreme, and I'm going to talk about that in an upcoming video. And then you have the fourth group in the administration, and that is the pro-Russian agents. People think that this is a hoax. You just have to look at the names. Always just go to the sources. You may not be able to read the names, but there are people like Steve Witkoff, Boris Efferson, Felix Sater that are very close to President Trump. So these four groups are the ones working from the inside. There are a lot of other groups, other governments, corporate special interests, unions, the George Soroses of the world, all that. They're all out there too, but they're not working on the inside. They're working from the outside. They're in this administration in particular. So when people try and put the puzzle together of all the different forces, these are the four most influential right now that's happening. And the WC Nationalist and Project 2025 is the really most nefarious and sinister of them in this current administration. So theory, I like that username, by the way. Does that theory match what you've seen as well?
Yes, but I have one that connects all the dots for you. And I'm hoping that because all four of those groups have interfighting going on, it's going to save us from what I actually think the larger plan is. I don't know how to make it quick, so I will let you ask me if you even want to hear, but I can make it as quick as possible.
Yeah, can you give us a cliff notes? What are you thinking and what connects all these together?
It's global. It's not just the US. If you click on weforum.org and you go to the bottom and you look at partner with us, and then you click on the alphabets and you look at any of the letters in the alphabet, you're going to find companies that you're familiar with that are all a part of this. It's called the 30 by 30 agenda. Wink, according to my book that I'm writing, this is a story that I'm creating from bits and pieces of information in the news and
What's the
different
name of the
things.
website, by the way?
Weforum.org. It's the World Economic Forum.
Oh, WeForum. Okay.
Yes, weforum.org. If you scroll to the bottom, look at partner with us.
All right, partner with us. Okay.
And then when you get to the bottom of that page, go all the way to the bottom of that page. I want you to see the alphabet. Do you see the alphabet?
I do.
Click on A, for example, just because A is the first letter. Do you see anybody in there you recognize?
I mean, I see a lot of organizations I recognize.
Yeah.
You want to point one out specifically?
Well, Amazon's in there, American Express, like just things that the reason why I'm having you look at the partner with us page is so that you'll know that this is way bigger than the average person is paying attention to. But if you will go back to the main page again and go to leadership, and I think it's called leadership and something. I haven't been in it for a minute, It's leadership and ordinance or something. It's at the top. It's like under About Us. Go back one more.
So why don't you just continue to connect the dots for us? Because it's going to be small on the screen for a lot of people to see. And at the same time, I'm going to look up the mission and purpose on GPT.
WeForum.org is a group of every single country, pretty much, that meets in Davos, Switzerland. And they've been meeting since at least the early 90s from the research that I'm doing. And what they've been doing is trying to come up with a global type of reset. I know I sound like a conspiracy theorist, but I promise you, when you connect the dots, it'll make so much sense. They've been trying to do this whole connecting thing. So if you go and you read the book called C19, The Great Reset, it's written by Klaus Schwab, who is the leader of this World Economic Forum. And what he wrote in there was he talked about how, C19 basically showed us all the cracks in our systems, in our financial system, in our, just information and data systems, and how we do supply chain and all the things. So C19 gave them an opportunity to figure out how to connect everyone globally on this uncharted territory where we all were doing stuff like Amazon was learning how to send things across different places that were never done before, just all these different things. And so they came up with this plan called the 30 by 30 agenda, and it's to reclaim 30% of the Earth's landmass and waterways by 2030. And so for me, and I'm going to do this quickly, in my opinion, the United States is starting it off, but you can see these policies happening everywhere in every country that I've major ones. UK right now is experiencing a similar scenario of what we've already been going through. But what they're doing is they're creating a systemic collapse. Everything is collapsing around us. Our food, our water, it's all been purchased by the billionaires. Our data infrastructures, where we get all of our information from the televisions to social media. That's why you have the conglomeration of people that sat behind Donald Trump during the inauguration.
Okay.
All of those.
Let me just pause you for a minute. And I'm not pausing you to silence you. I want to be very clear with that. I'm going to pause you because when you start talking about things like this, the live will get restricted and shut down. It's happened before.
This is a book. It's a book.
You're right. Okay, I know. But we're actually talking about things here. So I'm going to do more research into it. For what I just did right now, this is where I don't necessarily, so we get a lot of comments on my channel about globalism and the globalists. So that's where you're going down. You're going down this route where there's these groups of people that want to have this massive control over the world. Now, I'm going to do more research, like I said, but when I start hearing about these things, number one, I do careful that they do sound like conspiracies, which I don't like to go down unless there's real facts connecting them together. Now, you have like nuclear proliferation agreements. You have environmental agreements like the Paris Accords and so forth. You have all these things where countries and companies are coming together to do various things. You can call them those globalist policies and so forth. But when you're taking, Mr. Global, go ahead.
I'm not sure. I just kind of wanted to push back a little bit. Your circles can be maybe sometimes deemed as quote unquote PTs, right?
Well, I think I understand why some people would think them, but I also connect the dots very clearly with facts of these people who have said what they've said. So if you take corporate dictatorships, that's not a conspiracy theory because they're on tape talking about wanting to be a corporate dictatorship. When you go to Project 2025 and Heritage Foundation, they have a plan that's literally out there for everybody to see, right? And when you go to the Russian side of things, you actually have these legitimate people that have track records deeply embedded with Trump for a long time. And the same thing goes with the pro-is groups. So some people can see them as conspiracies. I've never been shut down for this because it's all factual. I'm not saying what
Understood.
I'm not saying what Theory is saying is not factual. I just don't know yet. And that when it takes to get large groups of people from various races, religions, countries, cultures, different motives. Like it's the motives when all these companies have different, not all different motives. A lot of them have connecting motives and so forth. But when you start to go these really mass global CTs, I don't buy it as quickly as I would a smaller group that like the Heritage Foundation and Project 25 that literally has a plan, has been enacting that plan that we all know about, right? So even when I pull it up on ChatGPT, not to say this is the end all be all by any means, but the reality check here is that these are mostly misinterpretations or exaggerations of the forum's discussions on coordination and innovation. No evidence exists that the WEF is secretly enforcing global rule. Does it mean it's absolutely not? No. But am I going to, at the moment, label it a conspiracy theory? I have to. I have to. What do you say, Theory?
I say very fair, and that is, I totally get it, and I wish I were wrong. I wish that the things that I have been researching, again, what I was going to tell you was, I'm not saying that they want to govern, so to speak. It's actually the tech bros that are going to be the main ones that are doing all of this, and it goes along with what you were talking about with the dark enlightenment. They think that we need to be ran by a dictator CEO, and anybody who doesn't contribute to whatever should just become biofuel. I totally get that part, but they've actually laid it all out for you, and you can follow their plan as well. So if you go look up the 30 by 30 agenda, there are 3 books that you can couple with that will actually help you. And this has been planned since, gosh, as far back as I've gone is like the late 80s, early 90s. And when they started meeting in Davos, that's when they were really connecting all the dots. And what you can read is C19, The Great Reset, shows you how it started. And then stakeholder capitalism shows you what the intention is. And when you go to look up the fourth industrial revolution, it kind of shows you how it's going to take place. And AI has a large part to play in it. So I get it.
Well, now,
that's responsible journalism.
Yeah, so we'll take a look at it. So I just put in 30 by 30 agenda. You can see it on the screen, just on Google, right? The AI overview from Google, Gemini, is the 30 by 30 agenda is a global, just like you talked about, is a global and national initiative to protect 30% of the world's what? I didn't even say it said just the world's, and specific regions like California, land and ocean by 2030. Its main goals are to reverse biodiversity loss, address climate change, and expand access to nature through a combination of conservation and restoration efforts. Like, to me, nothing about that sounds nefarious. Nothing about that sounds dangerous.
I totally agree with you. And if it weren't for the way that they intend to go about it and the fact that, okay, so let's go back over to dark enlightenment. Since you are comfortable with dark enlightenment, I'm going to show you a big piece of it. Okay. When you think about what these corporate tech people are trying to accomplish, it basically turns into these corporate towns. And do you remember company towns from back in the day where you worked for a specific company and then you paid like company lodging, like wherever you lived, the housing, the medical, the stores you shopped at, they were all part of the corporate
right. Well,
town.
Musk is trying to create its own town in Texas. There's that Peter Thiel, or I forget which individuals, want to create that big city in San Francisco, south of San Francisco. They're trying to do something similar. Yeah, and that's also not a conspiracy. These are legitimate plans that they have. Right.
Exactly.
And that is the exploitation of people, right? In some ways, they're trying to create these. I think they get a little delusional. I think it's like they believe in their own minds that they can create more of a what's the word?
Utopia.
Utopia. Thank you. Exactly the word I wanted. Utopian society. I think these people are, psychopaths and sociopaths, and they have these weird things. Like, they built so many things that are worth so much money. Now I can build a better society as well, a utopian society, and that's what we're going to do, because that's all we have left to do, right? So again, that's not a conspiracy theory. That's exactly what they do want to do, right? In these small things, in these
Absolutely.
at the moments.
Absolutely. So how do you make that happen? How do you get people to want to come live in these towns where you're going to have not only AI driven powered things where you're totally under surveillance, which those things have already started. If you look at legislation and in the Great Big Beautiful Bill, you will see where all the money's been allotted for those things to take place.
Yes.
And now you're watching them pass laws and legislation in the background that shows you that they are aligning with those different attributes of that floor plan for it, if you will. And so when you think about how you get people to go into these cities willingly and, whatever, think about what's happening with healthcare. Now, this is my theory. So this is not something I'm talking about as though it's absolutely you're going to connect all the same dots that I did. This is based on my experience and my research. I think that they're allowing the healthcare system to fall apart because rural America will be in dire straits. They will lose their hospitals. The fact that the farmlands are being purchased through JD Vance's Acre Trader and all the other stuff that they've got going on is going to prevent them from being able to have food. So you're going to have a food scarcity in rural America. And that's going to bring them into the inner cities. When they get into the inner cities, in order to have access to that, if you go and look up the 2028 Make America Healthy Again agenda, he wants everyone in America to have wearables of some sort, whether it be a watch, a patch, a necklace, a bracelet. I don't know all the different ways that they want to deliver this healthcare system, but it's going to be under the guise that, hey, you know what? The hospitals are kind of overmatched. Let's wear these bracelets and we can tell what's going on with you from a distance, and you'll have an interactive app that will tell you this. If we're looking at what they're doing with policies and how people are getting locked out of the system and how they're using AI algorithm to determine who gets to pay to play, you can see that happening in these different areas. And when everybody gets pushed into the inner cities, now they have no choice but to take the wearable or but to do whatever and then get locked into this new AI driven, forced, I don't know, way of living. I don't know a better way to explain it.
Well, none of that is conspiratorial at all, I think, because it's very clear. If you want to go back to, let's just stay on the sort of connected dots on a smaller scale. What are they doing with our social media data? What are they doing with having data where we're purchasing? What are they doing in our cars, buying automobiles where they capture so much data and they can use that data for all kinds of reasons? Creating a utopian society of some point is just like, now instead of piecemealing it from all these different things in our society, they're just basically say you can live in a society, have the patch, and we won't have any crime, right? Because we know what everybody's doing. So there won't be any crime. And if there is any crime, we can take care of it right away. Sounds like a little bit like communism, but without the technology. So you can clearly see why these psychopaths would do this, right? Because they're already doing it on a piecemeal basis with our smartwatches, with our automobiles, with our social media, with access to Whole Foods data, Amazon data, all this stuff. This is like nothing new what you're talking about. It's just like they're taking it to another level of exploitation and control. So if they were to get their way, and you thinking that obviously the healthcare system, degrading the healthcare system, and that helps them in the future, if they were to get their way, then it's sort of like unbridled capitalism. It's just constant exploitation and control over the workers. And if this was communism, this would be called the basically two different groups in communism are I can never pronounce it right, the bourgeois and the proletariats. So you basically have the ruling class and the working class, right? And that's what these people consider themselves. Basically, they're the ruling class and they want to be able to control everybody else, which is the working class. They're proletariats.
Right.
Sounds like the Hunger Games.
Absolutely.
It does, doesn't
And I think that that's kind of what we're going to be seeing here very soon, because who gets to play? Who gets to join these cities and these towns? And it's going to be based off those algorithmic things that we're talking about here, exactly how your footprint is being set up. Now they've gotten into our databases for our governmental stuff when you had Doge in there, which is the pillar of rage that goes with dark enlightenment. Rage is retire all government employees.
Right.
And the purpose behind all of that is if you have these people still there, they're going to want to keep that system alive and keep, using the government for their employment. And most people have that love of country that they actually feel good that they're, a part of it in the future after they retire from the military and whatnot. But what you're looking at right now, the way that they're building these databases is all going to be set up with AI-driven algorithms. Have you heard of Project Lavender?
I've heard of it. I don't know much about it.
So that is an AI-driven, and I'm trying to protect your life here, so bear with me as I look for backup words, if you will. It is an AI-driven platform that searches out individuals that will go against the regime, and the regime that I'm referring to is
The pro is
over in another place.
right. Is
It's not here. Yes. So that weapon system, it's a weapon targeting system basically. And all you had to do to be added to that list was be male and be of a certain background. And I know you know what background I'm talking about. And what they did was they sent in, different it's software that does not need your permission to access any parts of your Wi-Fi's, right? And any parts of your phone, any parts of any of it. And what they do is they look to see who you're connecting to, who you're talking to. That's kind of why Facebook does that whole, you might know so and so. They don't want to get you to socially network to have friends. They want to know who you're talking to, what you're talking about, how they can manipulate your data and do all the things, right? I can also tell you how that connected to the loss of TikTok, but I'll just keep going with Lavender. So, what was that? Oh, I thought that was a warning on your account. I was like, I don't want to get you.
No,
No.
he's just putting up different.
Okay, so Lavender would follow these people around through their social media platforms, through their cell phones, through, share my location, all these different things. And then the really diabolical part that is crazy, I'm going to put it in here. The targeting weapon that's released is called, in your chat, and the reason it's called that is because it waits until they go home, and then they wait for the green light based on a number from 0 to 10 as to the probability of being dangerous for whatever, and then that entire place is just evaporated.
right. Okay. So I know we gone down a rabbit hole, and I appreciate that information. So I've been looking up Project Lavender since you've been speaking about it. I think this ultimately comes down very back to what Mr. Global I always talk about is, so we all know, starting with not starting with, let's just say go back to the Patriot Act when all the people on the right were
Yes.
furious about the Patriot Act because they knew where that would lead to. That was the big uproar, is about, giving government too much control, because when they have too much data and too much control, it ends up to tyranny, right? It always ends up in tyranny. And that's what the anti-federalists, back when they created the Constitution, the anti-federalists were always fighting for individual rights and states' rights. So there was the Federalist Papers and the Anti-Federalist Papers. For those of you that are watching, in between the Declaration of Independence and this ratification of the Constitution, there were two groups. One group was called the Federalists. They believed that the United States government, the federal government, needed to be strong to protect its populace from foreign invaders and other aspects. And then there was the anti-federalists, which sounds negative, but it's not negative at all. They just recognized that if the federal government ever got too strong, then you would have a problem, because it would ultimately lead to getting into the hands of someone nefarious or sinister, and then the government would have too much power. So the Bill of Rights was created, and the first 10 amendments, which were all about individual freedoms and states' rights. And so the anti-federalists fought very hard to make sure that the federalists, or in this case, the federal government, never got too much control. So when you say anti-federalist, people say, well, these people were anti-government. No, they were not anti-government. They were just anti too much power in one centralized area. And the reason I'm bringing this up, Theory, is because everything that we've spoken about in this, all those things you're talking about, is the culmination of so much centralization of power and data and information behind very few individuals, which was, I just put up on the screen, I'll put it back up, around these billionaires. They have an enormous amount of information. And in conjunction or in combination with the federal government, this is the fear that they had back when they were creating the Constitution about the federal government. And you were just talking about another government having this data. So we're all seeing this. So whether you're MAGA or liberal or anywhere in between, you are seeing this centralization of data and control and surveillance that sees no bounds. There's no limits to that unless we ensure that we prevent that from happening. And I always mention this because people don't think it's too late, it's impossible. The thing that powerful people and wealthy people are always afraid of is a popular movement. People rising up to say stop, but we're not doing that today, right? So that's the thing that I always promote, is that we need a 28th and 29th Amendment. We need 50 million people to wake up, take their heads out of the sand, and realize everything we're talking about, doesn't matter whether you agree with everything we've mentioned or not, ultimately it comes down to we need a popular movement. If we have any chance at stopping this, that it has to be, because there's no other solution. The billionaires are not going to do it for us. The corporations are not going to do it for us. There's not going to be some magical politician that you know already that's going to change anything unless some generational leader steps forward. So that's my interruption theory on that. Theory as the username. That's always my segue to people who are watching. Like, why are we talking about these things? We're talking about these things because I know, not just believe, that if there was enough people that wanted to change things, that's why I do these educational lives and educational videos, to bring people to try and make them aware, instead of just doing MAGA hunting or liberal hunting and dividing and conquer and fighting with each other. It's about bringing people together to understand the real threats. Hey, Will, welcome back.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys can hear me. Is the audio picking up?
It's better now.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, this is the plutocracy of this. I don't know if it's just the administration of the business conservatives, GOP or not. But obviously, there's intelligence communities within Congress, and there's a wide intelligence community along with big tech and the Alphabet, Google Corporation. It's all connected. Private equity. I got it all written down how it's all connected somehow, some way, with the Carlyle Group, and then you have Jerome Powell connected to the Federal Reserve, connected to David Rubenstein, connected to we have the Secretary of Treasury, Scott Besson, who owns Key Square Group, which deals with private capital. And we had the former Secretary of Commerce, which was under the first Trump 1.0, Wilbur Ross. He has a private equity firm, and he dealt with the Rothschilds as well. But that's not much conspiratorial now. Yeah, I don't know if that was picked up.
No, there's a lot of people. There's a lot of connectivity between, if you want to call them the ruling elite. There's a lot of connectivity. I don't agree about the Federal Reserve and the monster from, the creature from Jekyll Island. I would suggest you need to do more research on that, because the families of the Rothschilds and stuff, yes, there have been some individuals connected, but it doesn't, that you need to connect the dots a little bit differently there. But you're right.
Yeah. It's all there. Steve Mnuchin worked at Goldman Sachs. Has his own DC-based private equity firm called Liberty Strategic Capital.
Yep.
And then Trump working with all these CEOs and the AI action plan, all the big tech giants. It's all a billionaire
they're
CEO
right. There's no
plutocracy
separation. Government's supposed to be government for the people, by the people, and we've seen it. You saw it in the inauguration, right? You see in the first row all the tech giants, all the billionaires, and all the financial.
They all know each other.
They all, of course, they all know each other, right? The difference is with this administration is that Trump has basically let them in the door, and they are controlling policy, or not controlling policy. Let's say they are manipulating policy, manipulating Trump to get everything they want, right? Normally you have influence by corporations, but you don't have these individuals that are literally have an open door policy.
Right. I mean, Mnuchin worked for Soros Fund Management.
Will, just so you know, there's a little bit of reverb on your end. And we want to hear what you have to say, but the mic's being a little funky.
Let me see. I'll unmute him. Invite to unmute. Okay,
The
Will, you're
wildest
back.
part about. Sorry, go ahead, Will.
No, he's still on mute, so go ahead, Theory.
I was just going to say the wildest part about what I'm following right now that actually has me. I'm not like. I'm good at following patterns, right? Like I can follow patterns really well. That was part of my Air Force job and the things that I did in the military, right? I taught military theory and science and leadership and management development. And so the thing that I'm following right now is, how you talked about the reserve. I'm not sure what he said about the Federal Reserve. I didn't hear that part. I was.
We need a centralized institution that need help with our monetary policies. But regardless how it's connected to billionaires through the 6 degrees of separation is just wildly uncanny.
Well, so the way that I tracked the Federal Reserve was the three things that changed our society were simultaneously input together, and that was the Federal Reserve, the IRS, and the public education system all simultaneously shifted the way that we landed. Okay, so for lack of better information to give at the moment. And then right now, what we're watching happen is we have people from other countries that are selling their bonds. You have all of these people that were from those alphabet agencies that all those names on your screen have been selling off their stocks by the billions, right? And that's the smart money exiting our dollar system, the way that our financial system is ran. And then you watch in real time our government talking about how digital funds and currencies are way more reliable than even the democratic process and the government. This was being said while our government was actively shut down. And I think the purpose behind the shutdown and the reason for the back and forth flip flopping of, yes, we're going to give you your funds for food and whatnot, and no, we're not going to do it now, and certain states aren't going to get their money now, and so on and so forth, is so that we will lose faith in democracy, so that many of us will just accept whatever comes for us. And right now, you're watching people lose their jobs hand over fist. And what happens when these major corporations are laying people off? People will not be paying their banknotes. The banknotes won't get paid. And on the 31st of October, you just had a large influx of liquidation sent into, like, they gave it its, what do they call it, liquidity notes. They gave them money so that they could beef it up because they know that they don't have the money in there when people go to withdraw money. That's your crack.
Well,
That's your foundational crack in what's getting ready to take place.
let me highlight or synthesize something.
Australian
Hold on, Will.
corporations keep.
One second, Will. 1 second. Let
Sorry,
me
TK.
synthesize something for you, Theory, for the people that are watching. Now, Dark Enlightenment and the Silicon Valley billionaires, they do want, and they've talked about this, that they believe if democracy fails, or they can show that democracy is continuing to fail, or they're undermining the government, and they prove that it's going to inevitably fail, they can come in as the saviors. And the saviors can then try and fix things. That's sort of the problem with these groups is they're not completely aligned. Like Elon Musk is a loose cannon. He has his own motives and so forth. But you're right that Dark Enlightenment has a theory that says, basically that democracy is going to fail. And if the more it fails, the more we can then save it and salvage it and turn it into, from a representative democracy, into that corporate dictatorship. However,
They're not only after the people's earnings,
I'm going to let no one jump
right?
in.
They're not only after the people. They're not only after the people's earnings.
Yeah, but sorry, one other thought on what Theory was saying, though. Now, when it comes to the Federal Reserve and Department of Education and things of that nature, I want to talk about economic policy for a second, because these are conspiracies in my mind. Now, all governments want to be able to control their currency, the governments. So their idea of moving to a digital currency, let's say like Bitcoin, that is never going to be supported by the Chinese, the Russians, the Americans, and so forth, because the whole idea of having a fiat currency is to have a central bank and you can control your economic conditions. So having a fiat currency in the dollar, which is not just a singular country's currency, it is essentially the world currency, is the dollar. And yes, it is getting weaker. Yes, it is getting weaker mostly because people or other countries are losing faith and trust in our democracy and our system of government and the rule of law, amongst other reasons as well. So the dollar is losing value, but that's just been temporary over the past year. The dollar always loses value every year, but it's not about losing value against, let's say, Bitcoin. It's about how does it compare to other currencies? And there's always inflation, and there's always increasing in value and decreasing in the dollar's value. But the idea that the dollar is going away anytime soon is, I don't buy it, because the United States government, as the strongest economy in the world, has a strong incentive to ensure the dollar remains the global reserve currency. Along with that incentive, Hold on, Will.
Sorry.
Hold on. That includes all of our allies also don't want the dollar to go away. BRICS is not a threat currently. Now, they do have a new system that competes with SWIFT. It will have some minor impact, but the dollar is not going away. So, in the Federal Reserve and the dollar. So, you have to understand that China would never want to give up control, have a global reserve currency as the Chinese form of currency, because they need to be able to manipulate their currency and control it. So that's why no government wants to go to a digital global currency. Because if you have a digital global currency of any kind, then you can't control it anymore, because it's going to be controlled by, let's say, a consortium of governments. The United States government doesn't want to work like the European Union. The reason the euro can never become a global currency like the dollar is because of how much bureaucracy and how much agreement that 30 different countries have to work on a singular monetary policy. So the euro is not any threat to become the global reserve currency for those types of reasons as well. So I don't buy into the de-dollarization of the world. Yes, it's getting less valuable, but it's mostly because of lack of trust and faith in the system. But there's nothing to replace the dollar currently that has more trust than the dollar. Now, if the whole world implodes and digital currencies become a thing, but again, digital currencies, until they can be controlled by a singular government, they wouldn't want to go to that either. So I'm just calling that out, that part of it out. Theory is that this de-dollarization doesn't make sense from a geopolitical standpoint or an economic standpoint. Now, it doesn't say the digital currency people, the crypto bros, aren't trying to manipulate it for that. PayPal Mafia has been trying to do that since they created PayPal. They wanted to replace the dollar as the global reserve currency with a digital currency created by PayPal that wasn't going to be decentralized, that PayPal was going to control. So if you think what Peter Thiel really wanted to do, he wanted to create a corporate currency that the corporation could control in order to undermine the dollar. Now, they were not even close to being successful in that, but that's what they were trying to do way back in the early 2000s.
So Executive Order 14067 back in 2022 was actually ordering the Federal Reserve to look up digital currency and to find out how we could make it actually work as a substitute currency, not substitute, but as a shifting currency. And if you remember back during the Great Depression when, the dollar was just worth nothing. People were burning dollar bills before they would burn actual wood because the dollar bill was worth less than the actual wood was. You had workers that were running out on their lunch break to buy things because the dollar was losing value from the morning shift all the way into lunchtime. Mm-hmm. So if you look at Executive Order 14067 and then you go and look at what Donald Trump just put into order, I'll go back and look that up in just a second. Sorry, I'm getting over the flu, so I still have a little bit of a nasty cough. He actually just put reserve money aside in digital currencies, and most of our global banking stuff that you're talking about, they're going back to gold standard and they're getting away from the petrodollar, which is one of the reasons I think that he's retaliating against Venezuela, amongst, the fact that they have oil and whatever else and that you can't control the current leadership in there. But they went away from the petrodollar in 2017 when they put the sanctions on there. And so in doing all of those things, we are losing value in other countries caring about our dollar. So when you start looking at the policies that are put in place, Donald Trump having that reserve digital currency in the background and his sons having one of the largest digital currency banking, there's some other things I can tie into that, but I would rather have my factual stuff for you to have on your website.
Well,
so
that law that you cited was revolving around the stable coin, help the stable coin industry, so that if there was a digitalization of the dollar, like a crypto version of the dollar, a stable coin, the stable coin companies went wild. So the crypto bros behind the scene are absolutely trying to make this happen. Trump doesn't know any better because he's a stooge. He doesn't care as long as he's grifting from whatever changes take place, he doesn't give a shit, right? So it is true that the crypto bros and the stable coin bill that you mentioned could have an impact, but it's meant to work in conjunction with the USDC. Again, the US government will not, you basically would have to remove the Federal Reserve entirely, which is an independent public-private partnership with the government. And at this point, there's nothing to show that that's going to happen yet.
Did you see the laws that were rewritten in 2023 and 2024 for how crypto and all that will be? You
Yes.
don't rewrite laws unless you have a mass influx of something that's getting ready to happen.
Well, he didn't. Yeah, he didn't write the laws. Of course, you have the crypto bros and you have the lobbyists for those
Well, this isn't
corporations,
the
right?
pump.
Yeah, they're basically writing the laws on behalf of Congress. So anyway, here, Will, I'm going to let you go next. Just 1 second. I want people to remember something, though. It's really important because we can sit here and discuss all these things that we think might be happening behind the scenes, but it's a waste. It's not a waste of our breath. It's good to know what's happening. It's important to know who the threat is in order to identify the threat and be able to fix it. But these things don't help us move forward. And I'm always about trying to solve problems or put forth solutions. So I just want to encourage everybody that's watching is that we can get demoralized about these things. At the end of the day, if our representatives represented the people, us, and not the special interests and not the corporate special interests, I know it's a huge lift. I get it. But that is the ultimate problem of the system. You have these billionaires and these special interests that are trying to tear down democracy or change it or manipulate it to their own benefits, right? We all know that. There's nothing conspiratorial about that. They want to change the system every way they can to give them the biggest advantage. We have to think in the opposite, is that a popular movement where you can the solution is ultimately making sure our representatives represent the people and not the greed and the money behind the scenes. So, Will, with that said, jump in and your last word.
Hello. Is the microphone picking up?
Yep. No, now it's not. We lost you again. For some reason, it's fine for a moment, and then you get distorted.
Oh. What weakens the dollar? There's institutions, corporations that weaken the dollar, but I know that major institutions. Probably not. But we do need a central bank, that deals with inflation and the employment rate and the BLS things and hawkish and dovish statements and things like that. But there's just so much going on with institutions and corporations, private equity firms being in the executive branch under the Trump administration.
Will, I don't know if you're covering your microphone. You're perfectly clear for a moment, and then you get muffled, and it's almost like it's similar to if someone covers up their microphone with their pinky or something.
Oh, I'm just using a shitty device.
Okay, so you're
sorry.
clear
Hello?
again.
Okay. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's just private equity firms the founders of private equity firms are present in the executive branch of the Trump administrations. But how is it that what can weaken the dollar? How can the dollar be weakened? Can the dollar be weakened, and what can weaken the dollar?
Well, the number one thing is, every currency or every asset is based on faith and trust, right? If you believe it has value, it has value. So if the world believes it has value, but what weakens the dollar is obviously having too much of something in circulation, not enough demand and too much in circulation. So another thing that can weaken the dollar is an alternative, like a true alternative to the dollar that might be coming up some. So all fiat currencies do die. There's no doubt about it. Fiat currencies all die eventually. So a replacement to the global reserve currency could weaken the dollar, right? Those are just like 3 examples of types of things that can weaken the dollar. Too much circulation, distrust in the system, distrust in the rule of law, distrust in the U.S. federal government, or an alternative.
True. Yeah. I mean, with the asset managers, like the big 3, all the mega firms that own all these assets under management, and then I don't know how they know so much about the Federal Reserve and how the employment system is with the 6% thing. I don't know how much like BlackRock knows about what this Federal Reserve and Social Security is doing. I just feel like it's all economy and big money corporations just all getting along well to know how to handle the people and know where the people shall be going. on a day-to-day basis.
It's probably a little bit more simple than everyone thinks. It's really just about a self-enrichment, right? Maximizing money for each companies. BlackRock wants to maximize their enrichment for themselves. That's what lack of regulations, meaning lack of government. See, people always say government's the problem, not the solution. That's not true. Government is the only solution. But when government is in bed with the corporations, that's when the ultimate problem happens, right? When the corporations can do whatever they want and there's no regulations on those corporations.
Yes,
and that's where you have
the utter
yeah, their motive is a profit and control motive. That's all they really care
the
about.
greed of wealth, the greed of their wealth in their hands of power.
Right. So just like the list that's on my screen. So you talk about private equity, like I give an example, private equity shouldn't be able to buy houses and control the housing market and raise the housing market prices because housing is important for society, right? So just one little small example. But the ultimate problem is all these billionaires that are on the list and many more and tons of other like private equity firms, BlackRock and so forth. That's the problem is the people have allowed all these firms to have too much control. And that's the awakening that we all need to have as people to realize that you don't even have to know all of them. You just have to understand the basis of out of control greed and the lack of participation by the populace in politics, in making sure that greed can't completely take over the system. That's the ultimate problem. It just boils down to what is the cancer? What is the ultimate cancer? All these other things we talked about, like symptoms. The cancer of society is the big money corruption. By every company that you mentioned, Theory, or every organization you mentioned, every organization that you mentioned, that's all the same thing.
The data center, Blackstone, it's all connected. These people are controlling the top of the hierarchical pyramid for that to be structured for centuries.
Right. You literally have thousands of different groups that are not working in conjunction. Yes, they all know each other. Yeah, they don't all know each other. Yes, they work on partnerships. They look for commonalities, but it's not like all these groups, even like the Dark MAGA Mafia here and Dark Enlightenment. The reason they're not being wildly successful is because Elon Musk is a sociopath. He has his own agendas and motives. He used to work closely with Peter Thiel, but they had a falling out even back in the PayPal days. They still have a lot of commonalities of things they would like to do, but they don't agree on everything and not even by a close stretch of the imagination. And that goes to all these people. Mark Zuckerberg, for instance, he's just a shill. That guy is clueless. He's just, Peter Thiel is like the architect. Whereas Peter Thiel is not a sociopath. He's a psychopath. And those people are really dangerous, right? The psychopaths are the dangerous ones. Trump is a sociopath. Elon Musk is a sociopath. Peter Thiel is a psychopath, and they're much more dangerous.
Are you going to add on the billionaire the three Venn diagram, like people like Howard Lutnick and David Rubenstein? There's so much billionaires. How is it that Cantor Fitzgerald, now the Secretary of Commerce in Trump 2.0, that's the only publicly traded company, while all these other secretaries got private equity foundations?
Right. But at the end of the day, that's, like MAGA protects or the Republicans historically have protected rich people. Like, don't attack billionaires. Like, no, if billionaires would never have become billionaires if they actually played by the same rules that everybody else does, right? They have, through their organizations like the Heritage Foundation and the Federalist Society and legislation that from helping people get elected into office, they've changed the tax laws over the past 40 years. Corporations or individuals used to pay super wealthy individuals, not the 1%, like the 0.001%, used to pay 90% in income taxes back in the 60s as the highest tax bracket. Now it's obviously much lower. And they don't have to play by fair rules. So you wouldn't literally have many billionaires today if they were playing by the same rules that everybody else has to play. But yet people on the right particularly want to protect these people. Like, they worked harder. They deserve it. It's such bullshit that they worked harder. No, the people who work hard are people who are stocking shelves at a supermarket. Those people work hard and they have 2 or 3 different jobs. That's actually working hard.
Work with them.
Say again?
Yeah, and then we're all getting, deducted. It's crazy what this system is.
Right. But again, so we all go down these. I do my research, a lot of research on various things. Theory, of course, is doing a lot of research as well. Again, it is good to know who the adversaries are and what they're doing. But ultimately, what's more important is trying to unite people instead of dividing them, right? So like that theory said, she appreciated this live because we're not just going MAGA hunting or liberal hunting and talking about arguing with one another, because that's what every foreign government wants. That's what our corporations want. That's what some of our politicians, they want us to be divided, because the more divided we are, the less we can do, right? Because again, ultimate fear is coming from a popular uprising. It doesn't matter if you're a monarch. It doesn't matter if you're an autocrat or an authoritarian. Is when the people rise up, that's when the people in power get scared. And it's really important for us to remember that, because if we continue to just talk about all the problems without always proposing a solution, then nothing changes.
I agree with you completely, and that's why my profile is Katniss Everdeen. Even though I know the things that I know that we as a humanity are going to start figuring this out the more we have these conversations where we're not looking for gotcha moments or trying to act like we're the biggest brain in the room, because let's face it, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
We just want to know what they're really up to.
Right. Well, and with what I was saying is, if you don't want to pick what town you're going to live in and how you're going to have your digital ID controlling what you do, it's time to start removing our footprint from the internet. It's time to start, stop telling them how we're purchasing things. Let's start talking to our legislators and tell them we want these overly surveilled cameras and things. Like right now in the big cities, you have these cars called Waymo cars. And I don't know if you guys live in a big enough city to see these Waymo cars. They're driving around all the parts of the city, mapping everything, and those cars are used for more than just autonomous driving and doing the things that they're doing. They're actually surveilling all these neighborhoods and telling these organizations what we're doing in our home states. And then you've got your Ring cameras connected to all of it. We need to remove all of the surveillance and data, which the great big beautiful bill has authorized those companies and corporations. Peter Thiel's corporation is one of the main ones, and that one and Oracle side by side, and Oracle now owns this app. So they're listening to everything. They're watching everything we're doing. They already know what we're going to do before we do it, and they're creating databases and lists of who's going to be problematic for whatever shift they want to have happen. Talk to your neighbors. Start talking to your family members. Have these conversations about what's happening and how you remove your footprints and change your predictability, because it's predictive policing at its finest.
Theory, that's nothing you said. Sorry, Mr. Glover, just give me 1 sec. Nothing you said there is wrong. Everything you said there is right. The problem that I see is the message is too complex and too convoluted. A little bit. And everything you said is very sensible. But when you're talking about, let's say, politics, and if someone wants to change politics, they usually keep the message really, really simple. And that's what I'm always trying to do. And you see up on the screen a 28th and 29th Amendment is making sure you remove the special interest money, basically reversing Citizens United. Because if you do that, then you bring representation back to people. It's actually not the only solution. I've been reading more into the Montana plan, which basically at the state level, so this is not the only solution, just one possible solution, is the Montana plan is basically where Montana is saying, wait a minute, because you have Citizens United and we have all this money coming from corporations. But at the state level, it's the states that determine what a corporation is, what an LLC is, and what rights an LLC and a corporation has. So the Montana plan is showing that Montana wants money out of politics in order to have it stop interfering with the representation, right? And if they succeed, other states could use that, because basically they can say, now, no, corporations are only an artificial entity, only for the sole objective is to be able to earn money and create a business, but those businesses are not extended human rights, meaning individual rights such as freedom of speech, and that money is speech. So The Montana plan is an example that you just don't have to have a 28th Amendment, which is like what I'm always proposing, is that you can have the Montana plan where states would decide like, no, corporations don't have these type of rights. And that hasn't been challenged in court yet, but it seems to be very good logic that the Supreme Court would never be able to intervene on that because they're doing it at the state level. So the point being on all this, to everybody else that's out there that thinks like, what I see with, some of these plans that are out there that people have, we need to do this, we need to reform the judiciary, we need to do X, we need to do Y. And there's like 20 different things. That's way too much. People don't, because not everybody's going to agree with those 20 things. You have to narrow it down to one thing. As I always like the City Slickers movie, I'm showing my age with when Curly said, what's the meaning to life? What's the most important meaning to life? And he just says one thing, and he would never tell him what that one thing is. And Billy Crystal, I forget the character he played, basically said, that's up to you to figure out what that one thing is. And as a society, it's up to us to figure out what that one thing is. And I always bring it back to the greed and the corruption, because everything that you mentioned, Theory, would be fixed or could be fixed and would be fixed by removing that, right? So that, whether, some people talk about age limits, all these things that are out there, it's too many things. So that's my only critique of that theory is everything you said is totally sensible. But like removing your digital footprint, most people don't even know what a virus is or how it works or, how to even clear their cache on their browser. So getting 100 million people to learn how to remove their digital footprint, I get it. It should be done, but they're never going to let it happen. It's too complex. But everyone can understand that money is a problem, greed is a problem, and that's all I always say that has to be the defining issue of our time, because it crosses, it's like a super majority. It's like 90% of the people would say, corporations shouldn't be able to invest in our elections. Like elections need to be publicly funded, and corporations shouldn't have speech, and money is not speech. Like that's a super majority that no one's going to disagree with. Because then if I start adding on to that with a lot of other things, then some people will won't agree with everything, and then the message gets convoluted. So I know that was a long rant, and I apologize.
That's all right. I think the only thing that I wanted to mention is that the fact that Theory, Will, individuals that are watching this, the fact that you can even figure this out is a good sign. The fact that somebody can follow these little trails, these little breadcrumbs, so they can get to like the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow to figure out what these people are doing is our advantage. And I think we're not too far gone yet, right? For these things to take place, I don't think. I think
Data centers.
well, and they're trying to, right? Like that's the goal. But the fact that we still have the opportunity to sit here and discuss these things and take
Wireless
advantage
sensor
of that.
networks.
Well, why do you
All I'm saying is that
why do you keep
we
interrupting?
have.
I'm sorry. This research is just too much. I'm sorry for interrupting the session.
Yeah, but it's okay. You just can't blurt out like singular words though. Like I don't, just try not to do that, please. Like let Mr. Global finish his thoughts.
I feel like Will is somewhat of a savant. He's got something going on. He's doing the research and he's got something figured out. He's just having trouble putting it together.
I'm sorry, Global. Sorry, TK. Sorry, Theory.
No, you don't need to be sorry. It just
I have a
we've got.
severe affliction. I just have more discipline at the moment. I'm you though, friend. Don't feel bad. Thanks, guys, for having me. I'm going to listen. I'm going to go ahead and drop. That way, when I fall asleep on you, you don't call on me. It's 1 a.m. here, and I was just excited to hear y'all talking. If you guys want to know any of the stuff that I am following, please feel free to message me.
Yeah, please send
Mr.
me a
Global.
DM. I try and consume as much as possible. Send me a DM with whatever you got. I promise I'll read it. It just may take a little time. I will always challenge people obviously, if it doesn't align with my views, it doesn't mean you're wrong. It just means like,
I love the challenge.
I'm
No, you're
questioning
totally
it,
fine
right?
because I want to be wrong. I want to be wrong. Trust me.
I love that
I
perspective.
live for the counter.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank
Because
you. You
the
guys have a
problem
good
is
night.
and thanks for joining Theory, and I'll hope to see you in the future, and I'll continue on without you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks.
Thanks. Is we all need to be careful, Will and others, that it's very easy to cross the chasm from connecting the dots to falling into a conspiracy trap. Like if you just watch the the 9/11 films and so forth and say, well, that steel couldn't have melted. It makes so much sense when you're watching it if you don't do critical thinking on the opposite side and look at the things that counteract those conspiracy theories. So just be careful. Like you connect the dots and it's easy to go down because, conspiracy theories make a lot of money. Look at the profit motive for the people that create content on conspiracies. The reason people continue to make so many conspiracies is because they enrich themselves with those conspiracies. It's really important motive. And if you need to look at the sources of who's creating those conspiracies and see if those individuals that are making those conspiracies, that came up with those conspiracies, what is their history? What is their integrity? What is their background of, can you trust them? Because typically that's all you need to know. Someone could have the most wonderful sounding conspiracy where you can connect all the dots, but if they've lived a life that is not one of moral integrity and trustworthiness, and they've done other similar things just to enrich themselves, that's all you need to know. It doesn't matter about the perceived facts that they're putting out on those conspiracies. The source itself is compromised. And once the source is compromised, it's like having a spy and it's compromised or is a double agent. You can never trust anything they say again. So I would just always encourage everyone that there's so much data out there and there's so many rabbit holes we can go through, is just be really careful about connecting the dots. I make mistakes all the time. I have to pull back or someone challenges me and then it tweaks or puts me back on course. So, and this happens typically when you're younger. The younger you are, the more you fall into these conspiracy traps. So just be careful on that.
Well, and you're trying to figure out what's going on, right? As a young person, you're like, why is my life shitty? Why does my mom and my dad work so hard and have nothing to show for it? Why are we always worried? Why? But I think if you, like you said, the rabbit hole, if you're in it for too long, you can't see the whole picture. You have to get out of the rabbit hole and live and let the other things kind of work. And then you get more information from other things that you see. I'm not saying don't
Right.
do research. Just be. TK is just trying to say be mentally careful because you can set yourself up for a world of hurt.
Yeah, yeah. Totally correct. It's just more.
Will, you muffled up again. Impartial observer, thanks for joining. I invited you. I just put you on mute for a second, and I know when you've been sitting around patiently. So thank you for that patience. Sometimes having these discussions can go off a little sideways. So I'm going to start first with
Right.
Will. Go ahead, finish up, and then I want to jump to no one and impartial observer.
Too much conspiracies is not good.
Yeah.
No.
What generation are you, Will?
I think he said Z.
Z. Okay. I was guessing that just by voice. I've been many times wrong with voice before. Yeah. It's awesome that you're doing the research. I heard you say a lot of things that made a lot of sense today, Will, but I had some things that I've done probably more research on a few things that you mentioned that seemed where you were going a little bit down the rabbit hole. And I'll just ask you like the Federal Reserve part. Do more research into the Federal Reserve, why it was created. It's been, I'm not saying everything about their creation was on the up and up, but for the most part, it's one of the most important factors in how wealthy the United States has become and how it's been able to use that our dollar as the global reserve currency in order to dictate the current world order. It's been really important, not just to America, but to the entire self-ruling world that the Federal Reserve was created and the Western capitalistic system, economic system. So I understand that some people may not like the Federal Reserve or think it's compromised. it's been more good than bad by not even a close margin. So that's it's just one example. Will, like, do more research on that, and then maybe I'll convince you that I'm right, and maybe you'll learn something else. But I know when we look at just one or two sources, like the creature of Jekyll Island is like the big source for a lot of people that are against the Federal Reserve. It's not right. That's not factual. There's a lot of misinformation in the creature from Jekyll Island.
Mhm.
All right. Thanks, Will. You're welcome to stay. I'm going to jump to No One, though. No One, how are you this evening?
Hey, TK.
What's up, man?
I've been chomping at the bit over here like, oh my, this is an exercise in patience, let me tell you.
All right. Very good. Well, I know you're going to have come back to me with Mr. Wolf here and some objective.
No, not really this time. Not what's sticking in my mind, and I'll come back around to my point of being. It's all about control, and I think you'll agree that they want to control the currency, they want to control us, they want to control everything. And when they start to lose that control, then that's when they start pushing the panic buttons. And what's connected to the panic buttons? Division, fighting amongst ourselves, right? And but my point was, I was going to way back when you were talking about currency and stuff, I was going to bring up on that note the greenback. Remember the greenback and how the powers that be said, "Oh, the greenback will never do because we can't control that," and that's why it never came to fruition. If you look back on that, the other thing that I'm curious about, do you remember? I can't remember how long ago it was, but there was this big talk, this big idea that came about of this thing called the Amero. Do you remember the Amero?
I don't.
The Amero was going to be the same concept as the euro, only it was going to be a combined currency of Mexico, the United States, and Canada, and they were going to call it the Amero.
Right. Okay, now I remember. Yep.
Yeah, and I'm just I bring that up because I'm wondering, is that still in the works behind the scenes? Is that still something that could happen at some point? I don't know. Anyway, that's what I was trying to bring up. But ultimately, again, coming back to the control thing, it's all about control. If they can control the currency, they can control the population, right?
Yeah, but absolutely. Everything, like, so would you rather have, like, would I rather have control centralized with the super wealthy or with corporations, or would I rather have it controlled by a government? But you can't answer that question just by saying government, because it all depends on what the government is. If it's an
No, it
autocracy,
needs to be a government of the people, by the people,
Right.
for the people. The people are the ones who need to have the control.
Right.
The control need not be in the hands of a few. It needs to be in all of our hands.
Right. And that was the vision for the United States to proceed, where we are the people are the supreme leaders ultimately, right? That's what it's supposed to be. And so but a lot of people don't connect those two dots, like, because they think government is this like mythological creature and it's our enemy, when it's not supposed to be the thing that's it's supposed to be the mechanism that's protecting the society. And we all know that that's not happening today.
Right. And it's and people have become fearful of the government, right? And it's not supposed to be that way. It's supposed to be the exact opposite. The government is supposed to fear the people, not the people fear the government.
Right. But and you brought it up before. Who is getting us to divide the people from its government? Like, think about it. Think of all the forces. Why don't we all turn extra? Mr. Global, take 2 or 3. No one take 2 or 3. Like, who would want to divide the people from the government?
But we're kind of guilty ourselves of doing it to ourselves in a way.
We are.
I mean, we're supposed to keep ourselves out of this position in the first place.
Because we've become so lackadaisical and so, just leave us alone and let us do our thing, and we don't want to be involved anymore. And then we wonder why we lose the control we were supposed to have.
Well, but that is the exact reason why the founding fathers did not want us to be a direct democracy, They knew the people in mass were not smart enough, couldn't keep up to the times in order to do that themselves. And it's why they went with a representative democracy, because they figured that was a bit more of a fail-safe. If the people elect representation, those representatives will be doing the job for the people. And that was nothing is perfect, by the way, but I agree with them in this point, because they are proving right now that the people can't, especially in today's digital age with how much information, there's no way the people could do this as a direct democracy. So that was the point of a representative democracy. But even then, they had all types of discussions. They still didn't know if it would work, because this is an experiment. But they figured the firewall, so to speak, is people at least elect representatives. Those representatives will work for the people, so it should all work out. But they didn't envision, well, I can't say they didn't envision, because they actually kind of did. They didn't envision that Washington envisioned that the parties would become so powerful that it would be more about party than the nation, right? So they did envision that. Washington envisioned that. So you can see everything playing out right now.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, I mean, theory earlier, something that I thought was kind of nice was that she said she was ex-military. I think that's, as much as everybody may not like the military, I think they are the ones that probably have all the inside scoop on everything, and they're the ones that are going to have to save us from ourselves. Because when Trump says the enemy is within, I think that's kind of true. I think we are our own worst enemy, and I don't know. I'm glad that she said that, because that gave me hope that the military is even looking at this type of stuff.
What is the Russian
and on
government?
that note,
Yeah.
isn't it ironic that the president is in control of the military? That you see what's going on there.
Yeah.
Right. Well, but ideally, right, what's supposed to happen is like everybody takes an oath to the Constitution, including the military leaders, and not to the leader. But obviously that is breaking down, right? It's all become
Right, because they're also conditioned, and I say conditioned because they're not just told; they're actually conditioned to follow orders without question.
not true at the admiral, not
So
true at the
if they're
general level,
start,
though. But you saw what's happened, like in the southern theater of South America, the two admirals that resigned a few months ago because they wouldn't follow the orders of the president. So they resigned, and then they replaced them with people that would do it.
yeah, and now they're in line to be, get in trouble for war crimes. Now look at so.
Right.
I don't know that they will. They'll probably get pardoned by
Exactly.
the orange turd, but
But that's, you brought up a good point. Like, we all know that when we can just name, we didn't actually do it, but each of us can name like literally every other foreign entity or corporation or lobbyist or like everything. They actually want the United States people to be divided. It's in their best interest. So anybody that has some sort of control already, right, or wealth or control, in order to maintain that control.
Let's not forget religion. Throw that in.
Yes, exactly.
Throw that in the basket.
That's the one I wanted to mention. Religious groups, they all want the American people divided, because the more we're divided, the less we can influence change, and the less we can influence change, the more they continue moving forward with their motives and agendas. So that's the scary part about this, is like literally every other force or fiefdom or religion or wants us divided. And that's the part that pisses me off the most, is Americans and society doesn't realize is that government and its people need to be working together. Really, like, that's the only thing. Every other force is trying to control, divide, enrich, profit, whatever it might be, exploit.
Exactly. And it comes back to education, which you brought up earlier. Our education system it sucks because we're not teaching our children critical thinking. We're not teaching them to question everything, right? They go to school, and what do they learn in school? To be what? Obedient workers from 9 to 5, right? And it's sad, really, because I don't know.
Yeah.
It's sad. Anyway, I don't want to monopolize. I don't know how long you're going to be up tonight, TK, but I want to be fair to impartial and let him be able to have a chance. So
All right.
I'll just be quiet.
Yeah, just hang out for a minute. Impartial, you're up next. Let me just answer this question because I know we go too long without mentioning. So the question on Instagram is, what is the solution? So J56 on Instagram. The solution is a popular movement. No, it sounds crazy. It's actually not. It's very viable. It just takes enough people coming together. So the solution, I always believe it's a 28th Amendment, because part of the solution people think is reversing Citizens United, because if you remove part of the money, but Citizens United alone is not enough, and it's just one ruling. You need to have a 28th Amendment that says elections all need to be publicly funded by individuals, meaning human beings, and not artificial entities, meaning corporations, foreign governments, special interests, lobbyists, religious groups, you name it. All those things are artificial entities. So at the end of the day, and when some people will say foreign governments and rightfully point this out, well, foreign governments are not considered under the Citizens United ruling, as they have to declare as foreign agents and they can't manipulate elections. It's true, but it's not true. The fact is that a foreign government can own 49% of a corporation or of a lobbyist group or of an NGO or of a think tank or whatever it might be. And they could provide all of the funding and they can influence our elections. So foreign governments can literally influence our elections. They just can't own 50 or 51% of an artificial entity. And if they're doing it as the government, then they have to declare as foreign agents and so forth. So they can still influence elections by owning 49% of a company. So think about how absurd that is. So at the end of the day, the solution is, and only is, like I've racked my mind for 10 years, done the research, reversing Citizens United and other things are just Band-Aids. You have to have a 28th Amendment, or like the Montana Project, if that was successful. That's the only thing to remove all the corruption and all the greed out of the system. That would bring representation back to the people, and then those representatives can start knocking out all the other issues we have to deal with. So, Jay, thanks for that question. It gives me an opportunity to repeat myself, which is like rinse and repeat, which is something you have to do over and over. So thanks for asking that question. Impartial observer, are you still here?
Maybe that's what they are. It's just an impartial observer.
Yeah, no, I'm going to disconnect you, impartial observer. If you are a real person, let me know in the comments and then you can join back in. But why don't you guys take it over from here, Mr. Global, or no one, if you have something you guys want to talk about related to this, or continue on something or challenge something else that I said earlier.
The only thing I was just going to mention is that you say greed, and that just it signals my mind to think of what the seven deadly sins are, and then it goes back to religion and having some sort of center as to how humans are supposed to operate, which these individuals that we speak of that are in your lists seem to have the lack of, which is some sort of godly spirit within themselves. So I don't know. There's punishment for that, but they like to challenge and wrestle with God, and I think their days are limited.
I don't know. I don't know when. I think you would disagree with that, knowing a little bit about you. And I think if it was, the purity of religion, or the positive side, the non-manipulative side, I would agree with Mr. Global. But obviously, they're incredibly wealthy religious groups that don't have their religious underpinnings as the best interests for the people. But you're right. Like
that's because they don't actually represent the religion itself, though.
Right.
Like we've mentioned before, it's a perversion. It's their interpretation, which it wasn't supposed to be a man's interpretation. So,
impartial observer.
I heard it on another live earlier. Someone posed a really good question to one of his guests, and he asked him, what does religion, organized religion, whatever, what does it provide? What does it provide that is unique, that doesn't already exist in the human psyche, in the human condition, right? In other words, what's in the Bible, for instance, that why do we need the Bible? What is taught in the Bible that isn't already taught on a more secular level?
Good
Well, it's
point.
simple. I mean, you kind of mentioned it earlier with school. Kids are taught to go to school and learn how to be obedient and good workers, right? Um,
Which is what the Bible teaches, right?
well, that's true. You're supposed to be obedient to the Almighty, correct?
Yeah, but why? In other words,
It's
like who made that one up? You know, why are we supposed to be obedient to an invisible, imaginary, mythological creature that doesn't even prove himself to be real?
well. Imagine if these individuals that we're so scared of, or not necessarily scared of, but are leery of, abided by these types of ideals. We wouldn't have to live in this situation or have to worry about it.
Yeah, but what I think
But they're
no one is
greedy,
saying
they're
is
prideful.
what I think no one is saying.
Uh,
You don't need religion for that. I consider
Right.
myself pretty much agnostic. I live by very strong integrity and morals. At least I think I do. I try to. And I don't think religion really influenced me at all. And I'm not saying that can't be the opposite, where those religious learnings cannot, I'm all for whatever people want to do. Like if you believe in your
don't
religion,
get me wrong. I'm not pushing a religious sentiment here. That's not what I'm trying to say. I'm just saying that some of the teachings that are displayed within that are obviously lacking within the human population, which is why we're in this situation.
well, no, I don't think it's why
No,
though.
you're
'Cause
right.
but it's not always why, because if you can go to many parts in Europe where religion is almost non-existent, let's say in Central Europe, it's a very small percentage of people, relatively historically speaking, and their moral code of their society and their cultures is incredibly strong. Um, so you don't need religion to do that for a culture. It can do it. I'm not saying it can't, but that's not the reason we're in this situation, is because of lack of religious learnings based on those ideals.
Well, then why don't they have a moral code?
They do have moral codes. There are lots of cultures around the world that don't have strong religious leanings anymore.
No, I'm talking about the individuals that we're afraid of,
I
the
think it's the reason, right?
names.
I think it's the
Because they're
exploitation.
hypocrites.
Go ahead, no one.
I was just saying, because they're hypocrites, because they don't walk the walk.
They're flawed human beings. Not only flawed, but like I always mention Mr. Global, like they're literally just people that are sociopaths and psychopaths and indecent human beings that have just, whether it was bad parenting, let's take Trump, for instance. It's just, he was never parented with any morals and values. And that's why he doesn't have any morals and values, because they weren't injected or indoctrinated by
Exactly.
his parents at a young age. And if you don't learn them at a young age, you will never get them.
He is a product of a bad environment.
Yes.
You can call it whatever you want, but you know, had he been raised by different parents, he'd be a totally different person today.
Mr. Global and I mention that all the time. We are all products of our environment. That environment could be
Absolutely.
religious, and that religious environment could have been very influential in a positive way, but it also could be influential in a negative way, depending on how that family practiced their religion, or how whatever church you went to, whatever. Right? So we're all products of environment, and religion is just one factor in that. If you're growing up
Right.
in a family where you got two narcissists who just work really hard, and they didn't raise you to have any values, and they only raised you to be self-centered and to manipulate everybody you encounter, that's what you'll be. And that's a segment of the society that you'll never fix. Now, the problem in the United States is well, think about it, two things or a few things.
Before you go
Yeah.
off on that topic, I'm not sure if you're watching the chat, but Impartial Observer did say he is human. I don't know if you want to re-invite him back up or if he's having mic problems or what, but there you go.
Yeah, thank you very much. I did see that, and I got lost my own. So Impartial Observer, just join again. Hit the join button, request to join. Will, I'm going to bring you back in for a moment. And then Impartial Observer, if you join, you're up first if you do jump in here. You said something wrong with our mic. I don't know if it's something wrong with my mic. I don't think so, because I think everybody else can hear me well. So I think it may be on your end.
It's not yours. He just didn't. He never unmuted himself and said anything.
I had him on ice for a long time, so maybe he just went did something. Impartial observer, how are you?
Oh, I'm good. I'm good. I don't talk a lot, and I don't join into the chat because I have a problem with my throat. So I try to keep things short, sweet, and brief. Number one, I'm not a man. That's my brother's picture. I'm 76 years old. My brother was older than me and a military man. And we came from a military family. So a lot of the knowledge that I have has been passed down to me. From the military perspective, my ancestors fought for this country. My ancestors were here before intruders came here looking for a land that was lost, but we were never lost. And I have that unique perspective and that unique information. So, a lot of what you're talking about and a lot of what has happened in this country, I know how it came to be. Like Rockefeller in 1902, when he said, I don't want a nation of dreamers. We're the schemers. I want a nation of workers. So we're going to dumb these generations of their children down. Did you know that back in the 20s, to graduate from the 8th grade, I have a copy of the test that it took to be able to graduate from the 8th grade back in the 20s. And I keep copies of that. My last time in college was in 2014 when I went to take the healthcare management degree to see what they were up to. I wanted to see what they were up to because I felt like they were up to no good. They did everything they could to keep me from enrolling in that class. But Gen Z, I'd already made friends among Gen Z. And the girls out of Chicago, Illinois, went with me to the dean's office 3.5 hours before the shutoff of not being able to take that class to find out why it had taken me over 3.5 weeks to get signed up. They weren't giving me all the paperwork. They were making it as hard on me as possible to not take that class.
So impartial observer.
I went in with all my friends.
So everything you see. So what's the solution after? So you're 70 plus years, and in just like 5 words, like what would you think we need to fix in our country in order to put us back on track?
To go back? To get back on track, simple. You go back to the way it used to be when Grandma and Grandpa retired. There was no such thing as retirement. Grandpa got up every morning
All right,
and went to
I
the
think you're.
courthouse.
I'm not connecting the dots there, Mr. Global. What do you like?
I was just going to mention, like, it sounds like she was kind of unfairly treated, and I
That
feel
don't
sorry.
matter. That don't
But
matter. That don't matter. That's a diversion. All of this is a diversion. That Jekyll Island is a diversion. People have to stop paying attention to all these diversions.
Well said.
okay,
Okay,
I
when
like.
Grandma, when
That's
I was a kid,
right. Well, just to keep you succinct, I have another guest that
that's right.
I want to have another guest that I want to take on from Instagram and give a shot. So impartial observer, thank you for your perspectives, and let's try not to be distracted.
Yeah, exactly. We need to go back the way it used to be. Grandpa watched what was going on in the courts.
Right.
You know,
Wait,
that
wait, 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 wait. I'm sitting here going, well, wait. You brought up the thing about the eighth grade graduation, the test to graduate eighth grade, and then you went off on a whole nother tangent. So, and
well, yeah,
what I
I
was,
did.
hang on. What I was assuming, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that the point you were trying to make is the test. That test is probably equivalent to a college entrance exam now, right?
No, more than that.
Oh, wow.
I gave copies of that test to graduating students
Right. So
at
your point is
SIU
though that,
in
if
Carbondale, Illinois, and they couldn't pass it.
so your point is
They
if we
couldn't
were more
pass it.
intelligent and better educated, we as I just fumble those words like a buffoon, that we would be in a better place, right? If our education system was better like it used to be, things would be better.
Our education system went down the drain,
Right.
and you can thank Mr. Rockefeller for that.
Yeah, by design. I was going to say, yeah, it's down the
Yeah,
drain by
by
design.
design.
Right.
But people let him get away with it.
Okay. I'm just going to stop you there, impartial observer. I do want to try and take a guest on Instagram. Oh, there may not longer being here, but thanks for your perspective.
All right.
I agree with you.
As do I. As do I.
As well.
Yeah, same here.
And it's funny. I actually poo-poo it sometimes about the education. No, I don't. No, I wouldn't say that. I don't downgrade it, but you get a lot of people that talk about the education system as a problem, and they're right. It's like a symptom. It's actually a core root cause, but it's just not quite as high as the greed. It's because it's like,
Well, correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like the schools now, we have not enough teachers and way too many students. And I feel like back in the day, they had a lot of teachers and very few students. So kids and students got more attention. And
but figure out the people that want to stay in power and control again. They don't want an educated electorate, right? Because I forget which of the founding fathers
right.
talked about an educated electorate and being involved is the only successful democracy. So when you have forces in government that are undermining the education system, that is most likely at the behest of other forces. So if you take government agencies, like I'm trying to connect the dots here. If you take government agencies today, let's say the FDA, and everybody thinks, oh, the FDA is supposed to protect us to make sure we're not ingesting bad food. That's, in theory, that's what it's supposed to do. But we all know that in many government agencies, many of the alphabet agencies that we have, the people that are in charge of those agencies are former industry insiders from the things that they're trying to oversee. So if you're like the agricultural, you have usually an agricultural head oftentimes, and they're not acting in our best interest because they're getting basically bribed, right? Or paid or something to, they have stock in their countries, in their other companies, or they're on the board, or whatever it might be. So the FDA is not led by, I'm just using it as an example. I don't know if it's accurate to this day. We got Robert Jr., right? We got Kennedy in there right now, right? Anyway, we have these industry insiders that are not looking out for the people. They're looking out for those industries. And that's similar to the Department of Education, sort of bring it back and connect the dots, is that when you get people in the Department of Ed, or money being accepted by the Department of Ed, or manipulations or influences, then of course you can reduce the level of education in this country. And over time, because they're playing chess, right? They're over time, they make us all a little dumber. And then we're unable to stand up for our rights because we don't even know what our rights are, and we don't know what these protections are. And this is no different than what Russia does, or many, many other countries do, is they don't want their society. They only want them educated up to a certain level, or for specific industries to do certain jobs, but they don't want a wealth of their society, or a wide, broad set of their society, to be highly educated.
Which is why higher education is so expensive.
It is one of the reasons, absolutely. That's a great point. It's an interesting point. That's why I said one of the factors. Well, the second factor is because it's for profit, right? It, like higher education, like it is in many other countries, it's meant to be an investment in your society so that your society is more productive. So your society.
Yeah, well, that's what it's supposed to be. That's
Right.
why people that know what they're talking about push for free college, free education, right? Because an educated electorate is much more effective in progressing the population, not keeping them held back, so that the ones in control can stay in control.
That's exactly right. And that's when, people on the right don't get that. They think, oh, we can't afford educating our society. It's not about affording. These are things. So a lot of times government is not meant to make money. It will always lose money. Right? It's not designed to be a for-profit endeavor. But there are some things in government that will pay themselves back in spades. That is like USAID, with soft power around the world. When we spend billions in other countries, people think we're spending billions in other countries, that's costing us money. It is not. It's complicated math, and it's a complicated consortium of things that happen, but that soft power comes back to our American corporations and our economy in many ways over. The same thing would be for education.
It's an investment.
Yeah, it's an investment.
Yep, it's an investment.
You're a parent and you have kids. Your only thing is to invest in your kids and to try to make them successful, right? And a government and its society is very much like a parental style thing where you should be investing in your society. And in these cases, like those USAID, and in education and in healthcare and others, those things actually pay themselves back many times over and actually do make money. Like, because when it's healthcare, you become more productive, you pay more in taxes. It pays for the healthcare over time. Or it's at least it loses a lot less money than for profit, right? And the same thing with education.
Right.
But these things sound
That's
like
right.
to the MAGA side or to the right, and I'm a staunch independent, they think those are crazy, extreme views. It's so absurd because they're just so common sense.
It almost seems like these families with these names that have kind of taken over everything, they want their children and their prodigal sons and daughters to be the fix to the situation, and to hell with everyone else is what it feels like.
Well, it's funny that when you guys think about it, I know you guys, can either of you pronounce the Burgesses or the proletariats from communism?
Proletariat.
Talking about.
Okay. So in communism, it's basically in Marxism, sorry, not communism. Marxism is the road to communism. But in Marxism, there are two primary groups. And it's basically the ruling class that owns the means of production, meaning the factories, the land, capital. Like they control the economic system. They are known as bourgeois. Man, I can't pronounce. I'm going to put it in
The
the comments.
bourgeoisie?
Bourgeoisie. Thank you.
Bourgeois.
Yeah, it's this. I'm going to put it in the comments. So that's the ruling class.
That's the current system we have now.
That's
what it sounds like.
That does, right? So those are the two groups.
That's the reality we have now, right? Because the few control the masses.
Oh, it's almost like crazy, the theory here.
You generate wealth and put it in the hands of a few, so that those few then control the rest of us who don't have. They're the haves, we're the have-nots.
So then that gives Rick no excuse. We already have his system here. It doesn't work. We don't like it.
Yeah, we'll try to convince him of that.
Well, think of the absurdity here. So you basically have communism, which everybody known as the boogeyman, right? And I don't agree with communism at all. But this is their system, or Marxism. A little bit different.
Wait, before you, what is it that, why is communism touted as such a bad thing? All it is the state being in charge of the means of production, right? That's all it is. Now, I don't agree with it either. I think the people should have control over the means of production. And that's what Richard Wolff advocates for, these worker co-ops and democracy at work and all those kinds of things. That's why I'm trying to encourage you to watch some of his stuff, so that you'll understand where I'm coming from and why I agree with that premise.
Well, you can agree with the premise. That's why I disagree with it's not the premise, it's the practical implementation. There are certain things that sound great in philosophies, but they don't work out in practical things. And those things are like the anarchy, libertarianism, and communism.
I agree.
They all sound.
They've all failed. They've all proven themselves to be failures.
Right.
Okay?
They cannot. They literally
in one
cannot
form
work.
or another.
That's right.
In one form, but please be careful. Don't say that these worker co-ops don't work, because they're. Look up Mondragon in northern Spain. If you want to educate yourself about worker co-ops, because guess what? They work very well.
Well, what's the difference between like a co-op and a union?
Well, a union, if you think about it, is still who's in control of the union? A one or two at the top, or a board, right? How much control do the workers have over the union? They can vote, but at the end of the day, they don't have ultimate control. Okay.
Right.
Whereas in a worker co-op, the workers control what's made, how it's made, when it's made, and who and where the profits go.
But then who decides where the innovation? Like who decides what needs
The
to
workers,
be made?
the workers decide.
So it's a
they
form
work
of
Monday
direct
through
democracy.
Thursday, and then I'm sorry.
It's a form of direct democracy.
It's a hybrid system
within a industry.
Yeah, that's why it's called democracy at work.
Yeah.
The collective consciousness of the people have to decide which way the
Exactly,
society
because they're the ones that
gonna
are
go.
because they are the ones that are directly affected by those decisions. Why then are only a boardroom of people making those decisions? Why aren't the ones who actually are most affected by those decisions making the decisions? You see what I'm saying?
Which requires an educated populace to make those educated decisions.
And now you're getting it. Now you're getting my point, I think.
No,
but it's merging. You're showing. It sounds like you have some examples showing it working on. I don't know what type of scale it's working, but is it more like? Is it a test? Like, can it be proven at scale?
It's been proven. It's been proven for many. I'm not.
Scale.
Look up Mondra.
At scale,
if you
meaning like
look up Mondra, huh?
Are there co-ops with 100,000 people?
That I if you look up Mondragon, it's literally a whole I don't want to say community, that sounds too small. It's a whole section of northern Spain that all based on this idea of worker co-ops. There's a worker co-op. If you even just do a Google search, and I don't like to use Google, but that seems to be the what everyone wants to use. Do a web search on worker co-ops, or and go down that rabbit hole. But even more than that, go. I know it takes time because his videos when he's up doing a presentation, and he goes around the world. He goes around the country, goes around the world doing these presentations of what these worker co-ops are all about. He has to build the context. And if you just watch one or two of his, and I'll send you the links to the ones that I recommend if you want. And they're an hour to an hour and a half to sometimes 2 hours long, but they're well worth the watch. And educate yourself about that whole thing that he advocates. And don't be scared off because people call him a Marxist, but he even calls himself a Marxist. So don't be scared by that boogeyman term, because he's a very, very smart man. And I don't connect myself with bullshit, is what I'm trying to say. And I don't detect any bullshit from what he's advocating.
The root that I see, though, is that when you have a civilization like ours, at our current moment, it seems as if nobody's steering the ship. The wind's not blowing, the people aren't paddling, with the boat stuck in the water. There could be a couple holes in it. It feels like we're sinking. Yet it seems as if we just kind of like sit here with our current system with the capitalism. People just make a ton of money. We're just kind of like running with chickens with our heads cut off. Yet we have no direction as to where we're going and what we're trying to accomplish and what we're trying to do. So
Right.
that was
And going back to, I always make references to George Carlin because I think he was a genius in some of the stuff he brought up. And he said this along these lines is, okay, well, if it's just about voting, and if it's just about putting the right people in the right positions, then where are all these people? Where are all these people of conscience that should be stepping up and wanting to lead and do the right thing, and whatever quote unquote the right thing is? Where are all these? He said, we don't have people like that in this country. You know why? Because they're all at the mall. They're all reaching in their fanny packs for their credit card to buy shoes with lights in them. So, and that's my question. Okay, fine. That's what we need. Well, where are all these people of conscience? Where do we find them? Where do we find them?
I can respect your cynicism, but there's been a history of proven of very good public servants that have represented us well through time. They've all been flawed.
I don't disagree with that, but we don't have enough of them, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
We do. I know we do. They're just not willing.
And where are they? Okay, because I want to know where they are. Because
there are hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of them right now. They're not. There's a two-party system that determines if they can ever get to the top of the primary in order to win their primaries. There's no way those people can get there. You have these rare people like Bernie and JFK, and even in the past, who else? Of course, Lincoln and
Jasmine Crockett, AOC.
Right, AOC, Crockett. And throughout history in the 50s and 60s and 70s, through the civil rights movements and the voting rights movement, there were a lot of really good meaning politicians that were working for the people because they could work for the people. And again, they were all flawed to some extent, but they could work because they didn't have to work against the machine of greed at that time because those restrictions were in place. So I can respect your cynicism, no one. I get it. I completely get it. Being cynical on all these things. But like I mentioned to you last time, I'll read everything that you send. And I always want to learn about these things, but I doubt I'll ever promote it because it makes no sense. Even what I'm trying to do now is like a crazy time. It seems
and I'm not asking you to promote it or change what what the direction that you're going, because I like the direction you're going in. All I'm saying is, in my opinion, it doesn't go far enough. That's what I'm trying to say.
Right. And it doesn't matter. That's
We
okay.
talk about, and you often talk about the Constitution being this perfect document. It's not a perfect document. It's not a living, or it used to be a living, breathing paper proclamation, but it seems like it has stagnated, and now it's being abused
It
to
is
the
being
nth
abused.
degree.
Right. But the piece of paper and the words written on the paper are almost perfect. They were missing some things, but if you go back and read it all, it's an incredibly good document.
I don't disagree with that, but it needs to also be a living, breathing, evolving
right. But that's not the problem of the document. The document was allowed to do that. It's just the people and the two-party system prevent what the Constitution was supposed to do from evolving, right? The parties, because party is stronger than the nation, and the parties, and you can never get a constitutional amendment passed, which is how you have obviously evolved the Constitution. So because of the two-party system and the entrenchment of how important is you have to vote with your party, the Constitution, in terms of its evolutionary part of it, can't evolve anymore because of the two-party system restricts it from evolving. But the document itself is amazing.
No, I don't disagree with that. I just, like I said, it is amazing in and of itself, but there needs to be more.
It needs to, yes, it
I mean,
needs a
it's
little
a problem
updating.
with cult.
Yes, I guess I'm having trouble articulating what's in my brain. I know the words are not coming out the way it's sounding in my head, but yes,
it needs to evolve,
it needs an update.
Our culture is
Constitution
so
2.0 or whatever you want to call it,
Yeah, just whatever, how many amendments it takes to do the things, the judicial reform, the media reform, the greed reform, right, election reform, and you get like 95% of the way there. Like, you're never going to have a perfect government. You're never going to have a perfect form of government. You're never going to have all you're trying to do is get it to
there's
some
no such thing. It doesn't exist.
Right.
It doesn't. Yeah, these utopias, these perfect societies, they don't exist. They may exist in someone's mind as an idea, but we should just. It's kind of like I tell people. I'm not perfect. I'm not a genius. I'm just trying to be progressively less stupid.
Dunning-Kruger effect, or sort of. So we have
I mean, you have to get it.
Sorry, go ahead.
We just have to get it to a place where people have the actual opportunity to try to do something about it.
Well, the power is with the people. How do we get them to understand this? Because it seems like they've lost that understanding of, we are the majority. We, the people, have the power.
Right. I mean, it's a cultural issue, I think.
Yes.
I mean,
which is why I say there needs to be a major paradigm shift in our culture.
Yeah, tectonic movement. Yes, there has to be something that pulls everybody from the ends into the middle.
But what is the catalyst, Mr. Global? What is it that's going to bring about this paradigm shift? Is it going to be a cataclysmic event? Is it going to be that comet that's going to hit the Earth, or maybe? What's it going to be? What is it going to be? Because I'd like to be alive and see when it happens.
It's going to be conversations just like this.
Okay.
Exactly.
Hey, Jotty97, welcome to the late show, the late show, which we're going to shut down soon, but I wanted to have you on.
Oh, I appreciate it. Good evening, guys. I didn't want to cut them off when you allowed me to get on, so I wanted them to finish their thoughts.
Well, it's all your forum now.
No, it's not all mine. But what I've observed, I'm not heavy into politics and whatnot, but I love, reading up on what's going on and asking a bunch of questions. Jodie Foster said it best in the most recent season of True Detective to her co-partner, to her partner, you're not asking the right questions. And so when we ask the right questions, then we can understand the mechanisms and the ulterior motives and the end games of who's ever in charge. And even if the people are not in charge, the lower majority or the lower power, whatever it might be. What I've noticed that's become more and more clear is that because of fear is a very easy emotion to manipulate and to control the masses with. And so when people see images, videos, speeches that, excite or ignite, it's easy. It's almost kind of like, with food. The great tasting food, a lot of it is not healthy for us, but it does the trick. It gets us to that, I don't want to say dopamine hit, but like it gives us that satisfaction. It connects us. It's like tribalistic. And so it's easy to like point fingers. But then do we ever ask, I'm not saying you and I, but like people in general, it would be very helpful if people in general would ask, why are they saying this? Why are they telling me, this party or this person is horrible? Let me do a little more digging. What's like, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and what's also not being said? If people ask just these basic questions, I guess it's part of critical thinking. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes.
Then like we wouldn't be as swayed, and you don't even need like a college degree. There's plenty of people that are smart. I think colleges are basically training grounds. All for one part of it is for career, and I think maybe in college, I don't know if college was always the way it is now, but like I used to always have like this like great view of colleges and universities where the professors make you and press you and like put you in a certain situation where you are expected to use your cognitive ability and critical thinking skills. I don't know if it's the colleges or if it's the professors or if it's their agendas that have changed. But I feel like, and I could be totally wrong on this, I think that part is missing. And maybe, there's been a couple of other things going on in recent times. Social media. Social media is quick, news flashes, quick headlines, quick images and videos. And so people consume a lot of these little viral or influential tidbits, and then that's where they get their information, and they just like, because emotions are easy to like manipulate, especially fear, then people then vote on that, or they persuade others to vote a certain way, and they never stop to think, what am I consuming? What am I letting control me? Let me try to reach over the other aisle that I'm being told to hate, and let me have a conversation with them. Like, let me see talk to me. What's going on? Like, what's really bothering me? What do you really want? What are you really afraid of? And then maybe we can get closer to the answers.
Let me just say something first. You're 100% right. But here's the issue with politics and why I can tell you're obviously very thoughtful. Just the way you speak, you can see how thoughtful you are. So your critical thinking is clear. The problem with politics is because culture wars are all about hate and fear. That's what culture wars do. It's not just in social media times. Like this has been used like this army, this different religions coming to take over your land, whatever it might be. Those are culture wars. They're all culture wars. And politics is always about two things and two things only: hope or fear, hope or hate. Sorry, it's hope and hate. That's what politics is about, because those people who want to critical think, which is most people in certain subject matters, everyone can get into critical thinking, but it takes effort. And if you have no base subject matter expertise in something, it's harder to start critically thinking about something because you're coming at it from a place of nowhere. So the problem is, if we had better education and more people critical thinking, like we could even have direct democracy, and that would work. The reality is, though, practical reality is, you'll never get there because politics has always been about hope and hate. So if someone comes along and can inspire hope, they can capture the minds of those people and they win. If someone comes along and spews a lot of hate, Hitler, Trump, others, whatever variation, whatever level of hate, that wins as well. But so you're right, in my opinion, about everything, but you'll never get there because a lot of reasons, a lot of factors, education system, no subject matter expertise, critical thinking takes a lot of time and effort and energy. People are busy with their lives. Like, so all of it's right. But at the end of the day, politics is just hope and hate. Mr. Global?
I think where my mind went with what he was saying was, when was the last time us as a population, and I have to be careful with saying this because it can be misconstrued, but when was the last time we actually had to struggle really hard? We live in the richest country. We have air conditioning. Well, most of us, right? We have air conditioning. We have houses. We have cars. We have water that comes to our sinks. We have electricity. I mean, when was the last time we actually struggled like they used to back in the day, when you were forced to do things not because out of necessity, out of trying to survival instincts. So when you have people that are in these wealthy families that have never had to really, like, I guess, struggle to survive, their mind doesn't develop those types of critical thinking skills that gets you out of the rut that you're in.
And that's why
Or
they shouldn't be ruling us either. They shouldn't be our elected representatives because they can't even relate to what normal people deal with on a daily.
they're out of touch.
Right.
Yeah, they're out of touch.
So, Jody, what say you, like, to either of our points there? Because you're right. You're right. I just think it's like,
I don't think there was anything wrong with what he said.
no,
at all.
nothing at all. I think his sentiment is spot on. I wish that would be reality. I just don't.
No, he's making my point when I say we're not being taught critical thinking in our schools. We're not being taught to question things anymore. We're just being taught to be shut up and pay attention and repeat after me and memorize this and pass this test and get an A. And that's what we're being taught. And that's why we are in the situation we are.
So what I would like, to make it even more nuanced is, I think certain people are wired differently. And okay, that part we know, but like, what do I mean by that? So certain people are introspective. They're questioning everything. They have an open mind. They're curious. So they want to learn and they want to know. They want to dig deep. They want to see what's below the surface. What is there anything simmering or behind the veil or the curtain? And some people are wired in concrete facts. They process their information from external to internal. I process from internal to external. So the people that process from external to internal, in psychology, there's this personality type called Myers-Briggs personality type. I think it's abbreviated MBTI. And what I've learned, and the only reason why I know this is because of my relationship, and I can share a little bit about that just to make the conversation a little bit more fun and engaging and not too serious, is sensing types is the people that, get or live their life by what they see in front of them, what they smell, what they hear, what they see from experience, concrete. These people operate very differently. They're more likely to take orders from authoritative figures and not question them. And so there might be a lot of those people in a certain segment that are able to like mobilize and then get things done because they are full 100% behind who they support. It could be, right now it's Trump. It could be anybody in the past or anybody in the future. And so they need, I think, maybe like concrete, like in your face and maybe multiple stuff to be shown to where they get to question what they believe. And, I don't mind talking to people that have very different viewpoints from me. And I think that's the only way you can truly see someone. And I think that's the other part that's missing is we're losing the humanity in this day and age. I think more so than in days past, maybe, because we're not reaching out. Like we hang around people that are the same thinking, the same kind of habits, maybe same kind of culture, and then whatever they might hear and say, then we think, oh, okay, maybe it's true what they say about those folks. Maybe it's not worth it, engaging with anybody. Maybe it's not worth it even voting. Like, what kind of difference can it really make? And I think that's where people, maybe, I don't know how many people, but like that's how some people just like either don't follow anything or go whole wholeheartedly into it, and they don't even know exactly like what they're doing, because that's just how they are.
Well,
And
you could argue
go
that
ahead.
Mamdani did exactly what you said in New York. He asked the right questions and he listened, right? And he heard his constituents, and his constituents rallied around what he was trying to convey as how to make life better. Whether you agree with the politics or not, irrelevant, right? But
Right. And I think he represents what you were speaking about before with hope.
right, exactly. Right.
Now, the only thing is, time will tell, how he does. And, it's not all on him. Like he's just one part. He's an important part, but he's just one part. I root for him. The most surprising thing from this whole thing was like how well Trump appeared to like the guy. I mean, I've never seen this ever happen before, where two people spoke badly about each other that hard, and then when they meet face to face, they were like buddies. Or he was very buddy to him. I don't know how Mamdani truly is. And I don't know what's going to happen after this. They might go back to like the way it was.
I have a theory
But
about
like,
that because, I always say that Trump has no real values. He only values money. He only values his narcissism. But he actually does value one other thing, and that is New York. He has an affinity as New York because that's where he was grew up, right? He loves New York. He loved what New York used to be and how many people in New York really admired him. Well, back in the day.
at one point,
He
Yeah.
loves it for as much as what it can do for him, or where he can stick his name on a building somewhere.
yeah.
Yeah, but I actually think, so I think it could last. But anyway, that here nor there. Like, it's one of those things because it's a very set of circumstances. Usually change involves, like, when even technology changes, is like not just one technology. It's a confluence of several technologies that happen at once that really allow the technology to move forward. And in his case, in politics, he actually also admires beauty and or power, and charisma. Like he's always a lapdog to either power, beauty, or charisma. And Mamdani has charisma, right? And it's just like so does Newsom in California, and he has charisma, right? And when he meets face to face with, he's always very nice face to face. So anyway, those are the types of things that like his personality traits of Trump. So that's why I think the New York thing might last.
Yeah. Those are the things he wishes he was, but down deep inside, maybe not. But I think he realizes he's none of those things, but he aspires to be those things, and he's never going to be. That's why he seems to be attracted to powerful men like Putin, like Gavin Newsom, like the guy from Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
He wants to be like them, but he knows he never will be.
Yeah, power, beauty, charisma really affect him.
But even if he does get to that level, then what? He's still not going to be fulfilled.
No.
People like Trump, and there's been so many, and there still are in various levels in life and in power structure. When people chase these things, fame, power, money, there's no end. It'll never be enough. And
Right.
so
It's never going to be enough.
Right.
And that's like the Elon Musks of the world. Now he's going to be a trillionaire, the first how much is enough, dude? It's like,
Well, that's
what
what
is
Jody's
it?
saying. There is no
It's a
end.
sickness. There is none. There is. It's a sickness. It's
Exactly.
a psychopathy.
Exactly,
a topic.
and you guys are very aware of this. I don't know all of them by heart, but the seven deadly sins. It's very interesting. The seven deadly sins. I think people, and especially the religious folk, like the Bible Belt and all these people that like are gun ho for their leaders. They should really. I don't know how they do it though. Like they just like is it whitewash, or they completely like have amnesia, like they don't really care about Trump's past.
Somebody said it really well when they said Christianity, it's a nice idea. When are they going to put it into practice?
I agree with that.
At the local home level, though, people put it into practice. At the, higher levels, it's definitely more nefarious. That's
Right,
how I
that's
view it
right.
anyway.
And the other
That's why I
thing
think
is,
the only reason I say that, everybody, is
go
because
ahead.
it's important, like when you're asking the right questions and reaching out to people, that you don't demonize someone's entire religion, because there are tens of millions of moral Americans that have a religious base, that how they teach their kids the right things, but even though their religion does not aspire to those same values, like there's so the disconnect. So I always say it's always be a little. I try and always be a little cognizant of that, as because it's important, because they represent a large swath of America that we need to be
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
right.
And I applaud, I admire that lady that spoke. I don't know in what scenario it was, but it was in the beginning of Trump's second term. It was like a church or something. She was like a gay priest or bishop. And she spoke to Trump directly, like saying, like, there's a lot of scared people now that like you're in power. And Melania looked at him and like, oh my God, like how could she like be saying this in front of everyone? Like, that was like a moment of courage, that kind of like with what the bald headed guy that now they're going after, the former Navy guy. What's his name?
Kelly.
Yeah, Kelly. Like, you see, the problem is, and I'm going to illustrate this in a video I saw. People don't care as much because they're like, oh, it's them. They're only going after them. And this, what I'm about to share with you, is from a very powerful illustration of that reasoning. There was this video I saw. It was all an act, but it was done very well. It was a university class. There was this like authoritative like professor, how they speak and whatnot, the stereotypical one. And he just singled out this one female student. And he says to her, "Get out." And everybody's looking around and like, what's going on? And she's not getting up. And she's like stunned, like, why are you telling me get out? And he repeats, "Get out." So then she proceeds getting out. Nobody says a thing. And she leaves. And then the professor asks the question, what is justice? And people give like, good definitions or whatnot. And then he says to the class, why did none of you say anything when I told her unjustly to get out? None of you spoke up. Because
That's something. Yeah.
isn't that awesome?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I mean, that's something we struggle with today, right? Like people,
yeah.
something's happening in the streets, they pull their phones out, they don't try to do anything. They're screaming or yelling, or I don't know, like that lady, that little Ukrainian girl on that
On the
bus.
bus. Yeah.
That one really tore me up, because I couldn't imagine why nobody did anything. They all just sat there, and I was like, "Are you kidding me?" Anyways,
I'm gonna share a story related to that as well.
All right, Johnny,
So
and I'm just going to have
go
you then
ahead.
wrap it up. You're going to land the plane, and then we're going to call it a night because it's late.
How much time I got? It's 2:24 in my time.
How about 3 minutes?
Okay, I'm gonna make it quick. So my paternal uncle died, and he was going to be buried in Montenegro, and we took a Polish Airlines flight, and from JFK, and there was a bunch a whole bunch of Orthodox Jews, and I was with my relatives. My relatives are like, the thinking like, oh, look at them, like they're so weird. Look at how they're moving around. Look how they dress, and look how they talk. Look at how many like there are. Like, who do they think they are? So we had to sit in a plane full of them, and they were praying and all that. So I was like, you know what? Let me talk to this one next to me. And I asked him, like, what's going on? Like, we don't see any women. We don't see any families. We just see men with their boys, their children. Oh, we're going to go to a place in Ukraine where 30,000 Orthodox Jews or Jews were slaughtered. And I'm like, really? But first we have to go to some other country and then take like a long 10-hour bus. And that's the only way we can get there because Ukraine's in war right now. Okay, fine. So tell me about these 30,000 Jews that were killed. It happened like centuries ago. And basically, there was this Christian ruler or governor or king with his daughter who were basically defending them against extreme right Christians. Those extreme right Christians said to that Christian king, listen, if these Jews don't convert, we're going to kill them. Well, if you're going to kill them, I'm going to protect them. So we're going to have to fight. Eventually, the good Christian king, I forgot his name, but he had a daughter named Sophia. They lost and they all got slaughtered. And so now these Orthodox Jews go and visit every like September out of respect and honor. So why am I mentioning this? The reason why I'm mentioning this is kind of tied up to the professor saying to the students, you guys never spoke up. But these people in power trying to defend those Jews against the same Christians, or maybe a different denomination, I'm not sure, people that weren't even Christian, because it was the human right thing to do. And even in religious thing, it's the right thing to do. Persecution is not allowed anywhere. It's a human right to exist, even if you are different. And only God, for those that don't believe in God, if there is a God, only God can truly judge us.
Amen.
I was just going to say, I should say amen right now.
Nope, not going to do it.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. With that in mind, so I'm going to leave, Ray. I know that I have the clip, so I'm going to play the clip as the closing for today. The clip about the person getting kicked out of class. So you guys can see it on the screen now.
Oh, you found it.
I found it. Yeah. So let's play it.
Awesome.
You guys should be able to hear it. And let's watch it, and that'll be our closing. And
yes.
Thanks for everybody else for joining tonight. And let's continue to move forward and see what we can do in the future. Thanks, no one, for attending. Thanks, Jody, and so forth. And
You're welcome.
All right. So
Appreciate it, TK.
Let's play it here.
You there, second desk, blue jacket. What is your name?
My name is Alexis.
Alexis, please leave my lecture room. I don't want to see you at one of my lectures ever again.
I don't understand.
I am not going to ask a second time. Thank you. Why are there laws? What are laws for? Anyone?
Social order?
To protect the person's personal rights.
So that you can rely on the government?
Justice? Thank you. Tell me, was I unfair to your classmate just now? Indeed I was. So, why didn't any of you protest? Why didn't any of you try and stop me? Why didn't you want to prevent this injustice? You see, what you have just learnt, you wouldn't have understood in 1,000 hours of lectures unless you lived it. You didn't say anything because you weren't affected yourself. And this attitude speaks against you and against life. You think it doesn't concern you, so it's none of your business. Well, I'm here to say, if you don't help bring about justice, then one day you too may experience injustice, and there will be nobody there to stand before you.
Was that the right clip?
And that's the right one.
Yeah, that's meaningful.
It's powerful.
Yep. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for joining tonight. I hope to see you in the future.
Yep. Thanks.
Good night, all.
Nice meeting you guys.
You as well.